times. We know that a lot of schools in Merri-bek really struggle with congestion. We also know that a lot of families want to walk or ride to school, but the dangerous zones outside the school gates often push people away from making that choice. So it's really about just creating a really hyper-safe, sustainable, healthy space in front of schools.
It's been absolutely brilliant. The kids are loving coming to school on Tuesdays. There's a real vibe and a sense of, joy when we start the day together. Lots of families are starting to come back. Our student attendance has increased on the days that we have open streets, and also we have less lateness as well. So it's just been brilliant all around.
We don't normally walk, we normally drive, so it's a really good incentive to get parents that don't normally do it, doing it. Once we're out and walking, they really enjoy it. It's so much safer. The kids love coming in here, playing, drawing with chalk.
This has been probably the highlight. Parents are saying, wow, can we do this more often, which has been fantastic. To see the joy on the kids' faces and to hear them saying, wanting to ride their bikes and wanting to have a play on the street's been amazing.
We have a huge percentage of our students riding to school. You can just see how successful it is. We've got kids riding, parents coming along, just really enjoying themselves. And it's changed my thinking. For someone who drove to work, bought my own bike and riding to work each day, it's amazing.
It's a fun experience. I normally walk, but today everyone's doing it, so I might as well join in.
It's also an initiative that residents and the local community can take part in. We want to see people coming out, having a coffee, we want to see people talking to their neighbours, and it's been really fantastic to partner with Bicycle Network and the schools to run these initiatives and really see, some healthy, happy street space.
Being part of Open Streets has been really exciting. We're interested in making people view their neighbourhood streets in a different way, being spaces for everyone and multi-use spaces, not just for throughways for cars.
You just listen to all this noise. It's great having everyone have so much fun around you and just being active. No, we're really stoked. We should happen every day.
This is very attractive for parents and kids to spend together. I think it's encouraging people to ride to the school.
I think it's definitely a good idea to get people active and getting people involved with the community. Because of this, it got a lot of me and my friends to ride to school every day. I get to see all my friends and talk to new people.
My name is Angelica Panopoulos and I'm your new Mayor of Merri-bek City Council. I'm a lifelong local. I've just finished uni, so I'm a law grad. I'm an activist and I've been a councillor for 2 years now. So today we are along the Moonee Ponds Creek in Glenroy, and this is somewhere where I've come ever since I was a little kid with my family, with my dog, down for walks by the creek and played in the park, and I've got lots of fun memories here. There's a lot to love about Merri-bek. I think the fact that we've got such a diverse, eclectic mix of people here who call this area home and who all care about this area is something that really sets us apart and makes me quite proud to be from this area. So my spare time's been a bit limited up until now. I do like just to see my friends, to relax, read a good book and to get out and to see new things. It's hard to choose just one or two of my favourite places in Merri-bek. I think most important is wherever I am with my friends or my family and having a good time, that's where I like to be. Also had some great times just sitting in Coburg Mall and having chats with people, and so really anywhere where there's a bit of energy and a bit of life happening, I think it's quite fun to be around there. There's a few big challenges facing Merri-bek right now. In terms of broader challenges, I think we need to work together to bring the community with us on particular journeys, say to reconciliation, to other forms of equality that we need to have happen in our community. As the Mayor of Merri-bek, I hope to achieve a few things. I hope that first and foremost, we can make council seem a lot more accessible to people, and as though this isn't something that you have to wait until you're much older to do or until you've got X amount of years of work experience. I think making it quite clear to people that this is council, it belongs to you as much as it belongs to me, and so we should all get involved, and I really want that to be the overriding, message throughout this mayoral year.
Well, they did putting the solar panel on top of the roof. It looks beautiful, and what is important is knowing the help that it could for us for our energy sufficiency. I saw everyone here in our neighborhood is putting solar, so I said to myself, I will think about it. I will not lose anything, so I choose to put it, and that makes a difference. It helps us when we receive the bill now. We saw the difference from the usual amount that we paid, so it went down, and I think it will help us. The money that is being not paid before, we can use it with other things, and I think the overall help of that solar being installed in our roof is really to save some money and also helping the climate change. And it will really make a difference for the earth, in a way, it is helping us. So I will recommend, don't hesitate to put this solar panel in your roof. It is a big difference to have it.
Pedestrians and bike riders, including a large and growing number of Coburg High School students, are at risk every day on and around Coburg's Bell Street Bridge at the Nicholson and Elizabeth Street intersection.
The area is notorious for traffic accidents. Recently, a Coburg High School student was injured by a car while walking in the area.
Footpaths on the Bell Street Bridge are significantly narrower than other bridges in the area, yet the Bell Street Bridge carries more traffic than almost any other road in Merri-bek, 47,000 vehicles a day. The narrow paths, along with high volumes of cars, trucks and buses, pose an unacceptable risk to safety and accessibility in our community.
We know that more than 1,000 people walk and wheel across the bridge on weekdays, just in the morning and afternoon peak periods. Even more use the bridge during the day and on weekends. We also know that students are worried about walking and cycling across the bridge. And for many, it's their only way to and from school, or to access the after-school activities and shops.
I've heard lots of horror stories about near misses and things like that, but most of what I see is just less than a metre in between the pedestrians and the cars, and 3 lanes of traffic going as fast as they want. It's really not a secure space because there's no separation in between the traffic, which is loud and fast, and the footpath where usually school kids are walking across.
I use the Bell Street Bridge almost every day, maybe 4 times a week, and it just makes me feel very unsafe. I myself have had terrible experiences on the bridge.
The thing is, I haven't seen one. I've actually been in an accident. We were just like traffic, waiting for the green light, and then out of nowhere, pow, the back of the car just gets slammed into by another one. We practically jump out of our seats.
It's one of the main connections to get me home, so yeah, I have to use it on a daily basis. I've seen some near misses. I've been in a few near misses myself, especially around the little island in front of the service station.
So I was actually involved in a car accident myself. It was in the rain, a lady lost control of her van and actually went into the barricade. So I got pulled back from that and then had to pull one of the ladies out of the car. I was probably in year 9. So that was pretty traumatic and pretty scary to see. That kind of put me off using the bridge, especially by myself. It's very small and it's especially after school and before school, there's lots of kids going to and forth, especially because there's a 7-Eleven there. So it can be pretty packed, and obviously after school traffic makes it really, really hard. They've already implemented different lower limits, but in a sense that doesn't really change anything because not everyone follows the rules. Our school has lots of active transport modes. We use the bike paths and things that surround the Bell Street Bridge, including Merri Creek. There's kids coming to and from every single day, and I think that it's super important that we make that environment more safer and more easily accessible for students of all ages.
That is why we're asking all parties to commit $250,000 to investigate and design safe and accessible active travel options over Coburg's Bell Street Bridge. We need this investigation to be complete.
Great. Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. Can I just double check that all of you in the gallery can actually hear me now? Okay, perfect. Thanks, everyone. So my name is Angelica Panopoulos, and I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council. And I'm also the chairperson for tonight's council meeting for planning and related matters. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our meeting tonight. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, Woiwurrung people. We wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of these lands and waterways, and would also like to pay our respects to First Nations people, elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations communities who significantly contribute to the life of this city. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and to Facebook. The recording will also be available as video on demand. Gallery attendees are advised that they will be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we'll act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency or a disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and for councillors attending here in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thanks in advance for your understanding and cooperation. So I'd now like to introduce the other councillors in attendance tonight. So in person, we've got Councillor Helen Davidson, our Deputy Mayor, Councillor James Conlon, Councillor Helen Pavlidis, Councillor Sue Bolton, Councillor Mark Riley,
Evening.
Councillor Monica Hart, and online we've got Councillor Adam Pulford.
Hi everyone.
And Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon. Good evening. We've also got Councillor Lambros Tapanos, who's been approved to attend online but isn't here yet, and Councillor Oscar Yildiz should be joining us shortly in person. I'll just also introduce Philip Priest, the Group Manager of City Development on my right, and members of the Urban Planning team in the room. So, councillors, are there any apologies from other councillors for tonight's meeting? No, if not, we'll move on to disclosures of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts to declare? No. Great. Item 4 is confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, can I please have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting for planning and related matters held on the 28th of June 2023? Moved by Councillor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Riley. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Okay, so before we move on to the reports for consideration, I'll outline how this council meeting for planning and related matters will run this evening. For the item in relation to a planning permit application, firstly, the relevant planner will introduce the report and the officer's recommendations. I'll then give objectors the opportunity to make their submission, and after this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you're making a submission, please clearly state your name for the record. You're requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please don't repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you're opposed to the planning application, would you please inform the meeting why you're opposed and suggest an alternative approach which would satisfy your concerns. Please use this opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than matters of detail in the officer's report. And please note that there's a limit of 3 minutes for each speaker, but as the chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or to decrease the time available to any speaker. Okay, so now item 5 is presentation of reports, and we've got 5 reports to consider this evening. So the first is 5.1, which is 49 Parkstone Avenue, Pascoe South, planning permit application MPS/2022/524. Are there any conflicts to disclose? No, if not, I will move to Vita Galanti, the planning coordinator, to present the report.
Good is now.
Okay, microphone's on now. Thanks, guys.
Apologies for that. So I'll just repeat what I've said here. This is an aerial image of the subject site. It's located on the southern side of Parkeston Avenue. If you can see just near the intersection of the street and located west of CityLink. It's in an area that's predominantly detached single dwellings, although there's an increasing number of contemporary style houses and some multi-dwelling development. The subject site is currently occupied by a single-storey weatherboard dwelling, and adjoining sites are both occupied by single-storey dwellings as well. So those dwellings are shown on screen. In terms of the planning controls relevant, the subject site is in the neighbourhood residential zone, which is an area identified for minimal housing growth. The proposal is for 2 double-storey dwellings that will be in a side-by-side arrangement with ground floor living areas and rear open space. 4 bedrooms and 2 car parking spaces are provided for each dwelling. During public notice of the application, 32 objections were received, canvassing a range of issues, predominantly related to traffic, car parking and vehicle access, overdevelopment, neighbourhood character concerns, amenity issues and tree impacts, particularly on some mature trees located at 51 Parkeston Avenue, which is immediately west of the site. A planning, information and discussion meeting was held on the 15th of May and was attended by 15 objectors, councillors and planning officers. Following this meeting, the applicant prepared some revised plans that were circulated to objectors. And these plans sought to address some of those objector concerns, including providing increased setbacks, reduction of fence heights and relocation of bins and storage sheds. Council officer assessment of the proposal has determined that the development would respect the neighbourhood character of the area, particularly that the side-by-side design means a pattern of open backyards is respected and the contemporary design responds to new development that's occurring in the street and the local area. Subject to conditions of the recommendation, including implementing the changes shown on the discussion plans, which were prepared by the applicant, the development is highly compliant with Clause 55 standards and will not cause unreasonable amenity impacts. Finally, the impact of the development on mature trees, particularly a cypress tree located at 51 Parkeston Avenue, can be mitigated through a detailed tree management plan, which forms a condition of the recommendation. It's therefore recommended that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued, subject to the conditions outlined in tonight's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got 2 objectors who indicated that they wish to speak. I'll firstly see. Sorry, now I'm the one that made the mistake. So we've got 2 objectors who've indicated that they wish to speak. And I'll just see if we've got Hamish Cross joining us online. Great, he's coming in now.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hi, Hamish, we can hear you, but we can't see you. Is your camera
Okay,
on?
I can turn it on.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great if you could do that.
Okay,
Thanks.
no.
Hamish, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, do we have a possibility to present as well? Is that okay?
No, I'm sorry, we don't have that. So if you could just talk to your objection for the 3 minutes, that would be great.
Okay, no problems. So, look, I've raised a couple of things with this. The tree was one. The parking, we didn't really look into too much, but investigated a bit today. First of all, by the way, thanks to the councillors that came out and met us. The Australian standards that they reference in the design, the B85, which is the Australian standard 28901/2004, traffic and parking systems. The vehicles that they show in their design are quite favourable in the position. We went out today and I was hoping to show you a video of what it looks like. There's no way that a vehicle that it needs to be a B99 vehicle, according to the regulations, can get in and out of those driveways with the crossovers the way that they are. My suggestion, and I know that you're looking for solutions and not problems, is to merge the 2 driveways, similar to the driveway to the east, where you've got 2 driveways side by side, which would create a 6-metre crossover. allowing them to move in and out. If for the people that have visited, you know that how narrow that street is. I've seen people be blocked in to their driveways, and they need to go door knocking to get people, try and find the owner of a car. So I'd encourage the councillors to reject it as it stands today, because it doesn't meet Australian standards.
Great, thank you, Hamish. Thanks. So, next up we've got David and Stephanie Spilsbury, who I believe are online. Yes, there we go. Just connecting their audio. Online. Yes, there we go. So, David and Stephanie, you'll just have to mute the live stream, so that way we don't get an echo back. But after that, you've got the 3 minutes for your objection.
Right, afternoon all. Thank you again. So yeah, exactly what Hamish said. We do have concerns about just additional driveways, the narrowness of our street. It's not overly wide, and trying to get vehicles in and out can be damaging, can be difficult, and I've actually damaged my own vehicle from doing that. So again, you know, remedies would be a joint driveway of joining them together. With respect to different points, I don't know if there's an opportunity to get any feedback as part of this process, but we've got a large tree obviously in the front corner of our property that I'm just interested to understand what would happen if there's any damage to that tree during demolition or the construction process. And then also reading the report, we raised a concern about a retaining wall with the garage being demolished that's currently on the site. With the natural lay of the land, there would be a drop. So again, I'm kind of interested in that element of why that has been identified as needed.
Thanks, David. We might, as we've got somebody coming and speaking on behalf of the applicant group, we might see if they can answer that question in their bit. Councillor Bolton?
Hi, David and Stephanie. I was just wondering if your main concerns with the retaining wall about the potential impact on the tree in your yard, or if you've got other concerns about the retaining wall.
No, retaining would be towards the rear of the property. The tree is at the front of the property near the driveway. So the tree concern is if during the demolition or construction process of removal of the old driveway, if there's any damage to the root system to that established tree.
Great.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks both. So I'll just see if there are any other people in attendance in the gallery who wish to address council on this application. All right. Thanks, David and Stephanie. So we do have one person who's indicated that they wish to speak on behalf of the applicant and one person in support of the application. So I'll see if we've got Anthony Pileggi here in person who is speaking on behalf of the applicant group. Got a green light? We'll just make sure with the mics. Great.
Good evening, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight in favour of the application. I'll keep it brief. We've seen the council report, which provides a pretty detailed assessment on how the application achieves a fairly high compliance with Clause 55, council's local policies and council's neighbourhood character policy, and why the approval has, why the council officer has recommended approval for this side-by-side development. During the application, we did work very closely with the planning officer to ensure, you know, the best possible outcome for the site with the side-by-side development, which will have fairly good internal amenity, whilst also having regard to the neighbouring properties. I think probably importantly, during the application, we did sit down with the objector parties to find out if there was anything we could do to, not assist, but something, you know, minor changes that we can do to just kind of soften any impacts. and we did agree to make a number of changes. I could probably list them. So we did increase upper level setbacks from the western boundary. We lowered the alfresco areas into the ground, which would avoid any potential for overlooking. We retained the fence height at 2 metres. We also committed to provide 5,000 litre water tanks, which are probably more than usual, but we have agreed to do that. One of the other issues was the bin storage, so we've provided allocated bin storage areas for each of the dwellings. And probably the main two items which were mentioned tonight was the turning circles. We did go back and provide some turning circles on how the actual crossovers work, and obviously council engineers have looked at them as well, so they do work. And I think the next item in regards to the tree on the nature strip, we have committed, and I think this is on the plans as well, to an arborist being present when any earthworks in the crossover take place, just to ensure that no roots are damaged. So we have taken those two concerns quite seriously and provided a response to the neighbours. In regards to the retaining wall, I'm just not sure which retaining wall, because I couldn't see or hear.
All good. Councillor Bolton, did you want to clarify on the retaining wall?
Yes. David seemed to say it was a retaining wall at the rear of the site.
Is it on the plan? Because I just...
What the applicant was asking for was to have a retaining wall installed while part of the existing dwelling was being demolished. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you...
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I understood the question from the objector to be in relation to the retaining wall on the boundary, and when the driveway is constructed, that how will the existing tree on the site be protected? Okay. So this is the neighbour on the opposite side to the cypress tree.
47.
Okay. So from my understanding, at the rear of the site, there was, because it was higher, there was a retaining wall necessary, but we don't require a retaining wall at the rear of the site.
Okay.
And in regards to the protection of the tree at the front, that's where we're committed to provide an arborist on site while any excavation is taking place.
Great. Thank you for that. All right, we'll do one question, then we've got a supporter to speak on that one.
So just quickly to clarify on the trees. So I know there's a tree management plan for the tree in 51, Parkson Avenue. I know there's a plan for an arborist to be present when works are happening around the tree, the street tree in front of 51. But the other question in my mind is the tree inside the yard of 47 Parkstone Avenue on the eastern side of the site. So there's a tree right in the corner, from memory, I did visit the site, right in the sort of, northwest corner of the neighbouring property on the eastern side.
So just
it's right beside.
Just Councillor Bolton, I think we did receive some advice on that one, just to...
I think that was about the tree in 51.
Phil, do you... I'm sorry, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but we'll just get that advice, and then if we don't have that, we'll might ask that one to you.
Thank you. Through the Chair. Councillors, there's an email at 5:15 today which identifies all the trees that are to be protected and are covered by the tree management plan, and it does include the tree that's under discussion. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Anthony.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. So next up, we've got someone who's speaking in favour of this, and that is Asanka Ipa, who is joining us online and is hopefully in the waiting room. Coming in, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Perfect. You've got 3 minutes.
Awesome. Good evening to everyone.
I'm speaking. I'm speaking generally in favour of the proposal. To start off with, I think it's a very modest proposal. It's adding a net of one dwelling to neighbourhood. And these dwellings of 2 to 3 townhouses on a lot have been springing up a lot across the northern suburbs. They're fairly common sight. They're part of the neighbourhood, and they're not out of character. What I think they offer is a way to make housing demand in a gentle way in established suburbs, rather than just expecting all the new housing to come from activity centres or greenfield developments. I also think that the biggest impact of this proposal, by a long way, will be for the people and families who get to live there in these new houses, in the suburb they're choosing, in a home that they found to be the best option for them. And I think that gets overlooked a lot. There's so much focus on any issues that anyone else has a problem with any given development. But the future residents, the people whose lives this is going to affect the most, they can't really be consulted. So often we just hear negativity about new housing and not from the people who are going to benefit from it. We shouldn't be keeping development and new people to just the activity centres, and we shouldn't be keeping established suburbs closed off to new people and new housing by stopping very modest increases in housing stock. I think having more housing is a good thing for a community. Meeting housing demand and allowing for housing to be built over time is a really important job of council and local government. We do obviously have a housing crisis right now, and every bit of extra additional housing helps. So I think this will be a net positive, not just for the people who get to live there, but for the community broadly. Thanks.
Great, thank you for that. So councillors, I'll just see if there's any final questions to put to officers or to the applicant arising from that. Councillor Bolton?
I've just got a question for the officers just around this this turning circle issue or drive sweep or whatever you call it. Just what the council's transport engineers said in response to that. I'm assuming they must have looked at that issue.
Yeah, certainly. So council's development engineers have reviewed the proposal and they are satisfied that the access and egress from the site via the 2 crossovers is an acceptable outcome. It is a narrower street than some of our streets in our municipality, but nevertheless they were satisfied with those turning movements and that it would be acceptable.
Comply with the standards that the objector raised earlier? Like, is that?
So I couldn't talk to the Australian standards because they sit outside of the planning scheme. But in terms of, I'm very much reliant on the development advice engineers, and they've reviewed it and are satisfied with the outcome.
Great, thank you. If that's it oh, sorry, Monica, yes? Sorry, Councillor Hart, just make sure you turn on your microphone. Thanks.
Yeah, my question was to the applicant.
Yeah, what was your question? We can, if Anthony, the applicant, on behalf of the applicant's okay to come back in, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Anthony. And I do note some of the changes that you've made in the consultation that there has been with community. But I particularly was interested in when you talked about the tree. I really wanted to get a response from you in terms of one of the conditions that the council have placed on it is around the tree management plan, which is in relation to the cypress. There was a lot of concern. And there is now sort of a requirement that that there'll be investigations, and if it was seen that there is going to be an impact on that root system, that you may be required to, in fact, alter some of the setbacks. So I just wanted to have a response to you, about that condition, because I think that's been a really important one to the community.
I think with
Is the mic on?
I think so.
Is it green?
Is it green? Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
When it comes to a root investigation, it's kind of evolved a lot over the years. So there are different ways rather than putting a backhoe in and just scraping. So what the idea of having an arborist present is that if he does see some roots straight away, they can stop the excavation, and then you can either do water jet excavation, which digs the soil without damaging the tree roots, or depending on how deep it is, for a crossover, you can even do hand-dug foundations. And then...
Can I just cut in 1 minute? I'm not talking about the crossover. I'm talking about for the cypress plan.
Okay, so the same as with the...
Which is a far more rigorous...
Yeah, same as the other
tree management plan.
Yeah, same as well. I'm talking about any tree in general, but specifically for that tree would be the same. And then if we do find that there is excessive roots, there are ways to design around it with different types of foundations. So there are pier and beam foundations where the concrete slab sits on top. So there are ways around it. And if it is then challenging, then we'll have to put in an amendment.
Yeah, because I think one of the things is could be the possibility of setbacks.
If there is, that's why it's there.
And just to clarify, Councillor Hart, as well, within the tree management plan and as part of the proposed permit conditions, it does have to be to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. So if this permit is granted, there'd be able to be things workshopped if those situations arise.
And further to that, I think the property is big enough and the dwelling is big enough to then do further modifications around that tree. So it's not as if we're going millimetre, every inch or centimetre. There will be some way to pull the dwelling back and accommodate.
Yeah, thank you. No, I just wanted to hear your considerations of that condition. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, if there are no further questions, could I please have a motion, councillors?
Yeah, well, I'm happy to...
Oh, are you?
I'm happy to move the officer recommendation as read.
Yep. Do we have a second? Sorry, I did see Councillor Carly Hannon's hand up next. So Councillor Davidson to move the officer rec and Councillor Carly Hannon to second. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. I feel very satisfied with the applicant's work, their negotiation with council officers and the work they have done with residents in alleviating some of their concerns. I was really pleased to see the tree management plans that have been put in place, particularly for the cypress tree. I know it only encroaches by 1%, but it's important, and I think quizzing the applicant so thoroughly on the tree management plan shows that he's really taking this seriously and really taking this into account. The development is suitable for the area. I know that there have been some concerns about the size of the development on the block, but I think it's very appropriate. It looks well constructed and I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Thanks, Councillor Davidson. Councillor Carly Hannon as the seconder.
Thank you. I concur with the comments of Councillor Davidson. I just wanted to add that the comments by Asanka this evening were really commendable as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Councillor Carly Hannon. Do we have any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in favour of this motion? Councillor Bolton.
I'd like to speak just briefly in favour. I do note some of the concerns that residents have had, but I feel that one of the really important things with this development is that it does keep an open rear yard, which is in keeping with the dwellings along that street. I do recognise some of the issues that have been raised by objectors tonight, and I also, the encroachment on the tree, that cypress tree in one of the neighbours, number 51, is quite considerable. It is over 11%, which goes into the danger zone. But I do feel satisfied with the tree management plan because it indicates that, it was similar to what the applicant or the applicant's representative raised earlier. So I feel as if the key things have been addressed, and I know there's some outstanding issues for some of the residents, but I feel on balance that this is way preferable to a lot of the applications that we receive, including in neighbourhood residential areas.
Great, thank you, Councillor Bolton. I'll see if there are any other speakers on this item. If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That was carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. So I'll now ask the Officer Vita to please outline the next steps.
Thank you, Mayor. So Council has just determined to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the development, subject to the conditions contained within the Officer recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and objector parties will receive a copy and objectors will have 28 days to appeal that at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged, a planning permit will be issued, and if the permit is issued, the applicant will also have 60 days to appeal any conditions on the permit. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the next item we have this evening is 5.2, which is 75 Harding Street, Coburg, planning application MPS/2023/154. Any conflicts of interest for councillors to disclose? No, great. So I'll ask Keaton Patterson, Senior Urban Planner, Commercial Priority, to please present the report.
Do you have it on the screen? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. The application at 75 Harding Street, Coburg, is to carry out buildings and works to use the land to sell and consume liquor associated with the food and drink premises and a reduction in the car parking requirement. The application is at decision-making stage. The site is a vacant shop front in the centre of 3 shop fronts in a small row of shops located on the northern side of Harding Street. Immediately to the north at the rear is a lane, beyond which are dwellings located in the neighbourhood residential zone. And to the immediate east and west are commercial properties, which are located in the commercial 1 zone also and in the local centre. Beyond these commercial properties are dwellings located in the neighbourhood residential zone. The subject site is in the commercial 1 zone, the local centre, and the surrounding area is largely residential. The role of the local centre is to serve the daily convenience needs of the local community and generally includes services such as bakeries, newsagents, chemists and cafes. In the commercial 1 zone, a permit is not required to use the site as a restaurant or a food and drink premises. So the main consideration here is the use of the land to sell and consume liquor, buildings and works, and a reduction in the car parking requirement. The proposed hours of operation for the sale and consumption of liquor are Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m, with the courtyard to be closed at 10 p.m. The total number of patrons would be 103, with 45 in the outdoor courtyard area to the rear. No car parking spaces have been proposed, and there are minor buildings and works to facilitate accessible toilets and a cool room at the rear of the site. The application was advertised and received 19 objections. The key issues received by the objections largely related to the hours of operation, patron numbers, noise, car parking and overlooking. A planning information and discussion meeting was held on the 30th of May 2023, which was attended by 6 objectors, councillors and council officers. Following the meeting, the applicant put forward revised operating hours and patron numbers. The proposal to sell and consume liquor has strategic planning support, being located in the commercial 1 zone and in a local centre. Council officers are supportive of the reduced patron numbers and operating hours as suggested by the applicant following the planning and information and discussion meeting. As mentioned, the officer recommendation goes further and seeks to restrict operating hours in the courtyard on Wednesdays to be until 9 p.m. instead of 10 p.m, which is in line with a previous planning approval next door at 77 Harding Street. Conditions forming part of the recommendation will also require the submission of an acoustic report to ensure compliance with relevant noise protocols, and will also ensure that there is no music in the courtyard. Conditions will also require a venue and patron management plan and waste management plan to ensure patrons are appropriately managed. There is a contact number in case of complaints, and that waste is appropriately located, managed and collected within appropriate hours. Given the site's location in the local centre with excellent access to public transport, councillors, development engineers are supportive of the 6 car parking reduction, provided that 6 bicycle parking spaces are provided. I went too far, I think. Changes were made to the proposal after the officer's report were finalised. I would like to present an amended officer recommendation which seeks to amend condition 6 to apply to the hours of operation to the use of the land, and to amend condition 3 also to revise the hours of operation on Sunday to allow trading from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. to reflect the amended offer put forward by the applicant. This now forms part of the officer's recommendation, which is for a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued with the key conditions relating to reduced operating hours and patron numbers, the submission of an acoustic report, and ensuring background music is internal only, and the submission of a venue and patron management plan and a waste management plan.
Great, thank you. So we do have 4 objectors who have indicated that they wish to speak. So firstly, we've got Tula Vasiliadis on behalf of Anna Vasiliadis joining us online, hopefully. Okay, we don't have Tula, so we'll check in and see if we've got her later. I believe we've got Jackie Hardwick here in person. Jackie, come through. Thanks, Jackie. You've got 3 minutes. And
Thank you. Hello, my name's Jackie Hardwick. I live at 82 Harding Street, so quite close to the proposal. My concern is that this is not for a small restaurant, and that it's not suitable for a local activity centre surrounded by predominantly residential area. We have a VCAT ruling on the site next door, a restaurant operated at 77 Harding Street for a couple of years. That site's now occupied by a cosmetic manufacturer. It's a site of exactly the same size, and VCAT ruled at the time that there should be a maximum of 30 patrons with a maximum of 10 in the courtyard. Now, this ruling was made after extensive discussion of exactly the same issues that are of concern here: noise, parking, and loss of amenity. VCAT members visited the site before making the ruling, but here we have an application for 3 times that number of people with, I'm not sure at the moment, 30 or 45 in the courtyard, considerably more than the VCAT ruling. I also don't understand how you have 2 sets of planning reports that have come up with 2 such very different outcomes. The original planning report from the council on the site next door recommended 30. Council overturned that, rejected it. VCAT reinstated the 30 after, as I say, considerable investigation. We've got now, as I say, 3 times that amount. I don't think this is a small restaurant, and I just don't think it's suitable for the area. I point out that Mr. Gerbach himself has run 2 previous highly awarded restaurants, both in large commercial areas, so completely different contexts, but both with smaller patron numbers than he's requesting here. He ran Saks, a 2-storey restaurant in the CBD, which has 70 seats, and prior to that, St Crispin in Smith Street, Collingwood, which was a 50-seat restaurant. Now, I'm getting this information from reviews from The Age and other publications, and I have copies of them here. If councillors, I'm happy to pass them to councillors if you like to see them. Okay, I think parking will be an issue again. It's true, as the report says, that people have other alternatives. You can walk, you can get Ubers, you can get public transport. There's good public transport. But it's a fact that many people are going to drive. And I know this because we've already got a large restaurant in Harding Street. Cornerstone's 200 metres away from this site, and it's 200 metres closer to a tram line. But many people still choose to drive. Harding Street from Belgrave Street down to Nicholson is parked out on Friday and Saturday nights, and the side streets also get heavy parking.
Thanks, Jackie. You've just got about 5 seconds to wrap it up.
5 seconds, well, sorry.
Yes.
I have a problem with the parking issue, obviously. I also have a problem with the general licence issue, which isn't really discussed in the report. They're not asking for a restaurant licence, they're asking for a general licence. I believe they should have the same sort of licence as Cornerstone, which is a restaurant, and also a limited licence, which allows the sale of limited amounts of packaged alcohol rather than a general licence.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thanks. So next up, I believe that we've got Frank Trimbroli here in person. Frank, thank you. Hi, Frank. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my partner, Zan Takiari, as well. So we own and live in the house at 49 Salisbury Street, which runs along the laneway directly behind the venue 75 Harding Street. I think Mr. Gerbach, the applicant, and other councillors who I've spoken to before today have all agreed that we would probably be the most impacted from a residential perspective by this decision. So we're not trying to block this at all. I'd love to see this go ahead with the appropriate numbers and opening times. Okay, I really welcome Mr. Gerbach's interest in the area. I think it would be a great addition to the area if it's appropriate and right. The two areas I'll focus on will be the capacity in the courtyard, which will impact us the most, and the liquor licence hours. So with the courtyard, we think 20 is a reasonable number. It is double what Olalola had, which the previous speaker spoke about. 30, that's a very small courtyard, and 30 we believe is just far too many. The more people you have in that courtyard seated, obviously the more you're going to have close to that back fence, which is about 3.5 metres from our house. So we're talking about 7 days a week, having 30 people drinking, socialising 3.5 metres from our house. And along that side of our house, on that wing is my kid's bedroom, my study, which I work from home 3 to 5 days a week. So it's going to have considerable impact on us. And the size of the courtyard is exactly the same as the size of the courtyard at Olalola. In terms of hours, the proposal is liquor licence for 7 days a week at different hours. That means that we would have no protection from any kind of silence, I suppose, and potentially 30 people drinking there 3.5 metres from our house 7 days a week. What we're asking for is for no liquor licence on Mondays and Tuesdays, or closure on Mondays and Tuesdays, and also on Sundays after lunch. Mr. Gerbach has told us that he wasn't planning on opening regularly on Mondays and Tuesdays or Sundays after lunch, that would just be for ad hoc functions if there was a demand for it. I understand that's sort of a nice to have, but that significantly impacts on us, and I think that could be cut back. And I'd highlight as well that the noise might stop from the courtyard when the liquor licence ends, but that's exactly when the noise then spills out into Salisbury Street and the surrounding areas. And we have people coming out, potentially 80 or 90 people getting Ubers, getting into their own cars, chatting. So on a Sunday night, it could be 8 o'clock, but the noise could go on until 9, and on a Thursday it could go on until 11 and so forth, and midnight potentially, if on those days where the internal is closing at 11. So I know there's been some comparisons to Cornerstone, and there probably will be in other discussion. And I'll just say that Cornerstone's a double-fronted restaurant. It's much closer to Nicholson Street, which is already noisy, and it grew from a single-fronted place with smaller capacity, and that's what we're asking here. Just asking you to be cautious about the approach, and let's start with some smaller numbers, and I'll be the first one to support Mr. Gerbach in increasing the numbers and the opening hours if our concerns turn out to be misplaced.
Thanks, Frank.
No worries.
Thank you
Thanks.
for taking the time to come in.
Cheers. Thank you.
So next up, we've got Rachel Lucht, who I believe is online. Great. Just connecting audio. Hi, Rachel, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Ah, fantastic. You've got 3 minutes for your objection.
Hi, my name is Rachel Lucht. I'm calling on behalf of myself and my partner, Jake Norrish. We live at 69 Harding Street. So our the courtyard is actually across the street from our house because the locksmith doesn't have anything in that area. So there's nothing to protect us from. We have pretty much the same concerns about the opening hours, the noise, and the amount of people back in the courtyard. We have a daughter who's not yet 1 year old, and we have a growing family, and we're concerned about there being drunk people coming out of the premises, up to 80, 90 people, 7 days a week until 10, 11 p.m. My fiance also works from home 2 or 3 days a week, and he has to make calls that could really be disturbed by constant noise. And it's, even though it's close to public transport, as others have said, many people in Melbourne do choose to drive, even when they could easily use other forms of transportation. So we're concerned for the amount of cars that will be on our street. And just constant noise when you have a baby, as many people can probably sympathize, is not a good thing. Particularly people yelling and carrying on as drunk people tend to do. So I probably don't need my whole 3 minutes, but that's what I have to say about it. And I think that, as Frank really eloquently put it, reduced opening hours, not being open 7 days a week, and reducing the number of people on that courtyard would make a big difference to how the business would impact our family.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. So I'll just see if there's any other people in the gallery tonight who wanted to speak as an objector to this application. No? All right, in that case. So we've got the applicant, somebody speaking on behalf of the applicant, and 5 supporters who have indicated that they wish to speak. So I'll just see if we've got Joe Gerbach here in person, and he is coming in now.
Hello, good
Hi.
evening.
Thanks, Joe. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Joe Gerbach, and I'm a husband and proud father of 2. I'm a chef by trade, gardener by the sun, bicycle rider and commuter by love, forager, soccer player, restaurateur, and many other things. I stand here before you to deliver my own vision for 75 Harding Street. Spencer Coburg, a small family-owned business. It will be me, my wife, who is also a chef. Our vision is clear. I've run great businesses before. I know I need every patron and hour we have requested. Our vision is to build on what makes Coburg great. We want to create something that will be part of the community and a destination that locals will want to bring their friends and family to. I reiterate, we are not hola lola, and if this is the benchmark that you are considering when determining your vote tonight, I plead for you to please reconsider, because it wouldn't be a vote for a smaller restaurant. It would be a vote for no restaurant. Hola Lola is no longer operational. It is proof that a community restaurant in Coburg cannot operate with a capacity of 30 people. Our draft conditions dictate us to provide an acoustic report. This is to ensure that noise emissions from the premises do not have an unreasonable impact on the amenity of the surrounding area and comply with the standards as specified in the relevant state EPA policies. The cost to engage an acoustic engineer alone is $8,000 plus the required works, which are close to $30,000. I understand this is a necessity for the amenity of the local neighbours, but a necessity for me to have 30 patrons in the courtyard to be able to repay these costs. A reduction in numbers to 20 patrons may mean this is unachievable. In 2022, Merri-bek Council ran a vacant shop fronts grant program. We were fortunate to receive this. A further reduction in numbers or hours tonight will be a contradiction and would negate the support given to open, sustainable businesses in Merri-bek. I have met with the initial objectors, listened to their concerns and acted where a decision was financially viable. We have already reduced our capacity in hours. The economic reality is that I can't go any lower. In closing, that is what tonight is about, viability. My wife and I are giving our all to create a great restaurant in Coburg.
Thanks, Jude. All good.
Your support means everything. It means our future. It means a job for me, my wife, and the employees we'll put on. If you are considering revising the courtyard numbers by 10, then also consider this is at least one full-time job that has been lost. It means something new and exciting for Coburg and means another community asset. Please support our application.
Thank you, Joe. I'll just see if there are any questions from councillors while we've got you in the room. Councillor Riley, just make sure you unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Can we get some clarification on the difference between the as of right numbers under the Commercial Zone 1 planning rules as distinct from the liquor licence numbers, which I believe are the issue. Can we just have some
Was that a question for the applicant or for?
Well, I think
Phil?
I'd really like the officers to answer that one. I don't think Joe needs to do that. Just for our own benefit, please. I know it's been going around the emails, but I just want to have it re-expressed here, please.
All right, so we'll do that. We'll do that question, and we also have 5 people speaking in favour. So, Phil, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question and through the Mayor. So, because the restaurant use does not require a permit in the zone, there would be no ability or restriction from council on the hours of operation of the restaurant or patron numbers if it wasn't for the further approval that's required for the consumption and serving of liquor. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Bolton, you've got a question for Joe?
Just one question. One of the objectors mentioned to me that they thought there might have been a mistake in the council report, that they thought that you were planning to only open on Sundays between lunchtime and 5 p.m. So I just wanted to see.
No, absolutely.
Is that correct? Is the objector correct, or what's in the council report correct?
I did definitely have, and what Frank absolutely said is correct, that the people who this mostly impacts is them. And I did it. I'm pretty sure we caught up twice and discussed numbers, and then we're emailing back and forward. From my point of view, to I guess the financial outlay in between having plans drawn up, having I guess submitting the planning application, going through this process, I don't want to have to go through it again. So my idea is that it's a small business. We are only going to be operating from Wednesday to Sunday, and this is what I said to Frank. But if kind of a function inquires, like in a hospitality venue, sometimes people say, oh, we want to have a wine dinner on Tuesday night, which is quite weird. So that's where I need to have that liquor license, because ultimately, if I don't, I have to turn that customer away. So that's where that is.
Great.
But the operating hours of the venue is from Wednesday to Sunday.
Great. Thank you for that, Councillor Davidson.
I just wanted to clarify a piece of information that I think is factually incorrect that was stated by one of the objectors. There was a comparison made to 77 Harding Street, and the discussion was in relation to the application going to VCAT and the outdoor patronage numbers being 10. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong through Phil, but the VCAT never determined the patronage numbers for that application. 10 patrons was the number that applicant had put forward. So there was never a ruling. So to make a comparison between 77 and 75 is, you can't do it because it's factually incorrect. Is that through the Mayor, Phil?
Yeah, just clarify
Yes,
that.
through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. That's correct. To maybe clarify it a bit further. So the proposal that was put forward that VCAT considered sought the maximum of the 30 patrons and the 10 patrons in the courtyard under that previous application. That was then considered by VCAT, and VCAT determined that it was appropriate for that permit to issue. So it wasn't the situation where the application was for 100 patrons and VCAT said 30 is the maximum that could be permitted on this site. That would be clarification.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks both for that clarification. One final question, that we do have 5 supporters who want to speak. Councillor Hart, and your microphone, please.
Cheers. Yeah, this was just a further clarification from Mark's question, really. If with the alcohol licence, and if the hours were restricted to, say, for argument's sake, 8 p.m. on a Sunday, if alcohol isn't served, can the restaurant still stay open in the courtyard post that time?
Thank you, Councillor, and through the Mayor. So the way that the permit conditions are structured in the recommendation before you restrict the operation of the use on the land. So the hours of operation that are stipulated in the recommendation before council are the hours of operation that the venue can operate with that liquor licence.
Great. Thanks, Joe, for staying there. Now I'll see if we've got Monique Richards with us in person to speak in favour of this application. Thanks, Monique.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councillors. So by way of introduction, my name's Monique. I'm Joe's neighbour and his friend. I am in by no means a public speaker. I am a Preston local. I am a rainbow mum of 3 beautiful children, and I am reflective of what is going to be Joe's patrons. I'm also somebody who has been with him through this journey and tried to support him in the best way that I could. So something that became apparent to us during the objectors meeting was that there was feedback that we needed to listen to and that we needed to gain insight from. So between the 2 of us, one late night, we sat there and we created a crude QR code with a Google form that could allow people to indicate if they were in favour of the restaurant or if we were completely off the mark. For this, we actually received 98 yes responses, and of that, 87.5% of these people were 3058 residents. They live 1.3 kilometres from the restaurant. The remaining 12.5% of those people are Preston, Reservoir and Thornbury locals. But what actually proved to be more valuable to us than the actual vote of support was some of the feedback and the comments that we received during this process that have actually been shared with council. People are glad to see that there is potential for a high calibre venue within walking distance of their homes. They think like it will be a great opportunity to increase vibrancy and cultural appeal in their own area. They think it will provide a much needed contemporary dining venue where friends and families can get together. But we also found that this was an opportunity for people to get to know Joe, to get to know who he was, what he stood for, and what his experience was in the industry. A lot of people hoped that tonight that the council and everybody else could see beyond the objections, beyond assumptions of rowdy, overcrowded venues, and disregard comparisons to that of a busy, and I quote, grog shop. You've seen Joe tonight. He's authentic. He's genuine. People hoped that you could see that a venue like this, who was owned and operated by a local like Joe, which would be a safe and inclusive space for people like me to connect over food and drink, could be something that you would look at granting. I looked at Merri-bek Council values and I saw that part of it states that you care for our people and you celebrate our diverse culture and identities. And Moreland particularly is enhanced by all of us supporting our local businesses, the arts communities and social organisations. Joe's vision for Spencer seems to meet that both of the council and also the local community, an inclusive space for people to connect, celebrate and meet. I ask you to please keep in mind that Joe, as has been stated, could have chosen anywhere in Melbourne, but he's a local. He was born in Glenroy and he lives in Preston. He's decided to integrate Spencer where he could be the most vulnerable, here at home. It seems that there really is a genuine synergy between some of what the community want and what Joe would like to provide. His values are family, sustainability, reconciliation, local and community. Therefore, I ask you tonight to look beyond any preconceptions that you may have of him or the business and allow Spencer to show you what it can bring to our community. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you, Monique. Thank you. Next up, we've got Sean Salmon, who I believe is also here in person. Thanks, Sean. You've got the 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. So I was one of the people that saw the QR code and signed on and said yes. I don't attend many council meetings, have some clients that do, but it's funny, I think often all the good work that you do in the offices it's not the things that the Age writes about or the Herald Sun writes about. It's and I know the sacrifices like some of you here, I know you've got kids at home, and you're here doing this for the community. And I think that's what this restaurant, and that's why I supported it is. It's what I love about Coburg. I grew up in a town of 20,000 people, Mildura, and my wife and I bought here in 2015. Tonight we've been at True North. We go there every Wednesday and have pasta with some friends. We know all the staff by name. We go to the RSL on Friday nights to watch the footy or see bands, know the staff by name. Like, that's what makes Coburg such a great place to live and what we love about it. And I chatted to Joe before standing up here tonight, and he wants to do the same thing. I live on Rodder Street, so not too far, and Spencer will be a different restaurant to True North and the RSL, and it'll add to the diversity and strength of Coburg. And Coburg is changing since we bought in 2015. The suburbs changed a lot. Pentridge is, like, who would have thought you'd have a high-end wine bar in Coburg? Like, you can buy a bottle for $300, but it's survived. It's working. Like, so Coburg is changing, and I think we need to be open as a community to enabling new restaurants and also rewarding people that are just putting their hand up to do something different. I have my own business, but sort of it's professional services. So I open a laptop and I'm done. I like to think of spending 30 grand before you've even got $1 in to build something. That's a huge risk. And to then sort of earn all that back takes a lot of time. And the only way that works is if you truly become a community asset, that people locally talk about it with their friends and family and say that come to Coburg, or if we've got a special occasion or we just want a night out away from the kids, that's where you choose to go. And I think it's a great opportunity for everyone here tonight to recognise that someone's taken a huge risk, someone's decided to invest in a suburb that we all love, and that should be rewarded. And I hope that you all decide to vote in the affirmative and that we end up in a few months' time having a great restaurant as opposed to that set of shops that now is pretty bleak to look at. And I'm sure a lot of you went to I could never say the restaurant that was there next door.
The old restaurant.
The old restaurant. But it's gone. And like I got coffee a few there times. She had a really rough time. And COVID didn't help, but starting on the back foot didn't help either. And so anything you can do tonight to ensure that Joe starts on the front foot and we create a great community asset will be really supported by the community. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Thanks. Next up, I believe that we've got Hemi Reiki Rady here in person.
Evening, councillors.
Thanks.
My name's Hemi. I'm the executive chef over at Ceres, the Merri Cafe, and look after the farms there with the supply chains. And I also have a business on Munro Street, True North. So I've been there for a while now, and it's been hard. Post-COVID, it's been a bit of a struggle. So me and my business partner, Brett O'Reilly, who's on the Small Business Association for Coburg, we've just been searching for friends, anyone in hospitality we can to come and move into some of these empty spaces around. When Joe came forward and said he was looking at a space here and he was looking at some others, we just did everything we can. It's like, if we can get him in our area as part of this community, it would be just such a big win. Because at night, when we're open in True North, you walk out and it's just darkness everywhere. And we just don't feel safe for our customers leaving and going and walking home. So just to brighten the streets more in those spaces, with Schoolhouse Studio opening, that was a huge win. And yeah, it's slowly happening, but I think Joe could be a huge part of that. As far as people finding out about Coburg and these local small little areas and these small blocks, it'll be a huge benefit. I've known Joe and his wife for almost 2 decades now. Me and his wife worked together at Atomica Cafe in Brunswick Street for years. And Joe, someone I've been watching grow and visiting all his venues for those times. Know his kids very well, and I just think he'd be a fantastic asset for all of us. He's working with me now at the cafe at the Merri, helping us out, getting to know the farmers there, getting to know that community. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Also, just coming out of this sort of post-COVID situation and inflation, the prices of everything have increased. It's been near impossible to run a business. You're struggling. You're back inside your business 7 days a week, whereas you used to get a day off. And I think Joe is the one who has the understanding of those numbers, and he knows what he needs to try and make these numbers work. I hope you can see how true to his art he is, how true to his craft he is, and yeah, vote yes and sort of help him out a little bit. It would be amazing. Amazing for me to have a friend like just down the road. Finish work at 7 o'clock and go have a wine and say hi. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hemi. Next, we've got Sandra Demore here in person. Thanks, Sandra.
Hi, and thank you. I'm Sandra Wakeham. Demore is my maiden name, but that's
sorry,
okay.
got the wrong one on the list.
I'm a local. I live on Harding Street as well. And I must say I was super excited when I saw the QR code. I've lived there for 20 years and I've seen that disused, derelict space for much of that time. And I just think what this restaurant can bring is vibrancy, community, employment. It's good for so many reasons. Most of us not only live in the area, but we also now work there, working from home, and so having more of that diversity and an opportunity to have those places available where you can socialise and get together with colleagues and friends. And I've spoken to many people and friends that live in the area who feel the same way. I recognise and understand some of the concerns that have been raised, and I feel that they can be mitigated through the conditions and the changes that have been suggested. To the issue of parking, I just feel like it's important to address that. I don't know that Cornerstone is a good comparison to what this bar will be. I think they're chalk and cheese. Cornerstone has lots of baptisms and communions. It's elderly people, it's big families. They tend to drive. This is the kind of place, I know, I go to lots of local neighbourhood bars. People will walk, they will cycle, they will get the tram, they will get ride share. I think it's not like it's a Uber takeaway joint where you've got all the Uber drivers parked out the front as they do at Cornerstone, so I don't think it's a fair comparison to make. And I think in terms of Hola Lola, yes, it was smaller in terms of the licensing numbers, but it's a testament to what can be done. I remember receiving letter drop-offs at the time about, what are we going to do about all the riffraff that's going to be out the front, and it just didn't happen. I mean, these are people in their 40s and 50s, and they're going out for a nice dinner, and I just don't think that the evidence is there to suggest that it's going to create a bunch of louts hanging out on the street. It's not like your Hens Night type of venues, is my sense. So I just want to bring some balance to that conversation, but very much excited and looking forward to seeing what a restaurant like this can bring to our area. We've got plenty of kebab shops on Sydney Road. Nice to have some diversity of different styles of venue for our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Last up, we've got Lainey Harris, who I believe is on. We do not have Lainey Harris online. So, with that, I'll see councillors if there are any final questions to put to officers or the applicant. Nope. And all right, if not, could I please have a motion? I've got Councillor Riley. Sorry, I did see his hand up first. Can I just see what you're actually moving? The off. Okay. Now I had two hands up. Yeah, we'll get that. Now, Councillor Davidson, will you just second that? Okay, all right. We've got the updated hours up there on the screen in bold. Councillor Riley to move, Councillor Davidson to second, Councillor Riley.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you to everybody. This shows some of the difficulties with planning and the pros and cons, particularly when you have a commercial zone 1 abutting neighbourhood residential. We know what sort of rub that causes, and tonight the speakers on both sides of this debate or this application have really highlighted that. I don't need to go over that again. I'm supportive of this amendment because the business has actually listened at the public information discussion and amended their hours and some of the rules, and then they've also added another shortcut to the Sunday to 8 p.m, which I really respect. I don't think it's feasible to cut the patron numbers. It's really important to say that this is an eatery, it's not a pub. So I don't expect to find the sort of solutions we get on Sydney Road where you get scores or hundreds of patrons pouring out of a venue at the end of the day. This is an eating venue where people will taper off as the evening and the day goes on, and you will get some people coming out. I know you've experienced it, you live there, but I don't believe you're going to get those huge numbers, save for those large bookings where you might get a hen's night or some other big party booking where you might end up having a lot of people come out at once. I hope that will be a rare occasion. But you have a patron management plan that you folks, locals, will get to manage with the business. So that's really important part of this, that we manage the issues that you've raised, whether that's parking, noise, and so on. We're not going to have music outside. I'm not going to go into parking. Really, I think one of the speakers just now summed it up beautifully. People can walk, ride, run, scoot, Uber, taxi, all those other things, and I'm hoping they will. It's really good to know the business is going to be sourcing and using other businesses, from Series to other suppliers in the area. That's really important. We don't need to have another business, a vacant shop there like we've heard. I know it's really easily, it's pretty plain for people to see. The reduced patron numbers are really important. We've already done that, some of that. We've reduced the hours. So we're trying to squeeze out and get some sort of a balance between you. I've spoken to Frank, and I sympathise with Frank and his family, but this is where we're on the boundary of I've said that, the commercial and the neighbourhood residential. Frank, I would like to do more, but I'm not sure that we can keep twisting it down before we actually don't even get this business a chance to start. So I really hope you can work together, and I'm sure you will be good neighbours and try your best. And I really hope you don't have kids trouble getting to sleep at night, and I'm sure we'll hear about it if you do. But I'm going to leave it at that, and just thank everyone for your concerns and sharing them and being very eloquent tonight and very patient on both sides of the fence. So literally on both sides of the laneway. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Councillor Davidson is the seconder.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Riley, for highlighting many of the main points and issues on both sides here. I think you spoke very well. I don't have too much further to add, but I just wanted to point out and reiterate some points that have already been made by Councillor Riley and the applicant and the supporters of the application. So we're operating in a commercial one zone, and in my opinion, there's no justifiable reason to further limit the operation of this business, either by reducing the patron numbers or the hours of operation. The applicant has negotiated this as far down as he can, and there has been some serious and heartfelt negotiations that I consider very genuine. Given the location and its interface, I think the appropriate negotiations have already occurred, and any further reduction, in my opinion, would be overly onerous and totally unnecessary. And I just wanted to point out, as Councillor Riley had said, I won't go into all the details, but it's not a pub. And as one of the supporters said, to have these biased opinions and assumptions made about the patrons during the operation hours of this business isn't correct. I don't think it matches this business type at all. There is no music in the courtyard. They've got low patron numbers. There's appropriate opening hours and a patron management plan as well. And we have a very responsible business owner who has taken great pride in his establishment as a small local family-run business. And also I'd like to point to the large community support that is evident from the quite innovative and interesting approach of having a QR code for people to submit their opinions. And that opens the applicant up for criticism as well as support. So to see that they had large support from the community really makes me feel very comfortable that this is a good application that I can support wholeheartedly. And I would hope that councillors stay true to our support of local businesses and help them thrive, particularly after the damaging effects of lockdown, and encourage small businesses to reoccupy the many vacant shop fronts that leave a lot of our suburban nooks looking ghostly and vacant. This is exactly what we want. This is what we need in Merri-bek. I encourage the councillors sitting here tonight and online to support this well-negotiated and appropriate licence for this business. And I'm proud of receiving applications like this, and I really do hope that it thrives.
Thanks, Councillor Davidson. I'll see if there are any speakers against this motion. A speaker in favour of it, Councillor Yildiz. So just because it's planning, it'll have to be an alternative if this fails. So I'm just going to go Councillor Yildiz. Yep. Is your mic, sorry, we just need to press the green button. All good. Yep, let go.
Sorry,
Perfect.
further to what's already been said by Councillor Riley and Councillor Davidson, very heartfelt explanation
sorry,
of why.
Oscar, if you could just move closer to the mic and that way they'll hear you properly.
Well done, Joe, for your heartfelt explanation as to why you want to create this business, and it is a family business. I just wanted to comment on your behaviour in terms of the contact you've made with councillors through phone calls and also through email. It was very respectful. I think you're quite empathetic, not just from you standing up there and talking to in the chamber here, but I know you will work with the neighbours. I know you will work with the objectors. I think you're someone who's quite passionate about what you do. You're a chef. You want to make food, and you want the locals in and around that area to enjoy it. Just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone about the fact that people aren't going into the city anymore. They're staying in their suburbs. They're trying to make sure that their money stays and rejuvenates and grows this economy, in particular our economy here in the city of Merri-bek. And I'm a massive supporter of business and always will be, and I just wanted to congratulate you on the way you presented tonight, but also further to what the councillors said, I think you're someone who's willing to work. It's not a business that's going to be roaring with doof music. It's about a family environment, a family restaurant that will be family friendly. And yeah, I think with Cornerstone where it is, and I know a number of businesses in that area, it does need to be activated, and I think this business will certainly reactivate that little corner space. And I think someone who was a big supporter of yours mentioned that earlier as well. So well done, and I'll certainly look forward to hopefully supporting the application.
Great, thanks, Councillor Yildiz. I'll see if there are any. So Councillor Bolton, is that an amendment? So because it's planning, it'll have to be like the one permit considered at a time, isn't it? Because it's technically an alternative. All right, so what's your proposal? And are you unmuted?
My amendment is to reduce the patrons in the rear courtyard only to 20.
All right, is that acceptable to the mover? No. To the seconder?
Definitely not.
All right, so that's a no. So, Phil, what's the the process in terms of, do we debate that or not because it's a separate permit app thing?
Might just throw to the.
All right, we'll just get some
Thank you.
governance
Just get some governance advice on that.
No, so it's a permit application, so it's different. No? All right. So we want to debate. All right, so Councillor Bolton, do you have a seconder? Councillor Hart to second that? Okay, Councillor Bolton.
I support the restaurant. I think it will be great for the area, and also I think the contributions that have been made tonight also highlight a lot more aspects to do with the restaurant, and especially the comments of the owner of True North in talking about more going out places, restaurants, etc., being open after hours to create a more active nightlife in Coburg, and I think that is very necessary. And I also would like to commend the applicant for making the compromises you've made with the local residents. I think that's been really welcome, because I think there are some difficult balances. I think we do want the restaurant. It does sound great, and we need to mitigate just some of the impact on the residents. And I think you've done that with your compromises about opening hours and so forth. I'm happy with the hours of operation, but I do feel that in the rear courtyard area, which I understand is quite small, I feel that 20 is sufficient, because, you know, I do appreciate all the comments that have been made. It's not like maybe some other premises, you know, I certainly don't have a prejudice about the clients or the, you know, restaurant goers. I think it'll be fine. I don't have any worries about any of that. But I just think that whenever you have a large group of people together, whether it's school kids or a bunch of oldies on a bus, there's a lot of noise just through socialising, without music, without alcohol. And I think that I'm just a bit sensitive, especially for some of the workday or you know, school day nights when the restaurant's open, that I think 20 is sufficient. But anyway, I'm happy to be, you know, see which way things go amongst the councillors, but I certainly do wish the business to succeed. But I do think this change would be helpful for the local residents.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Hart as the seconder? Just your button.
Yeah, just briefly. And I would also like to, I think, endorse the comments were made about the respectful and balanced debate that was here tonight. I support the amendment because I think it gives us a chance to reflect that in how people vote tonight. And it gives an opportunity for councillors who wish to vote to express their concerns, not about the restaurant at all, but just to acknowledge some of the challenges that will be, particularly for the immediate neighbours. And I particularly hear the issues that Frank has raised. And I also know that, Joe, you're obviously talking about limiting the actual hours of operation that you probably intend to do, but still the permit will still be over the 7 days. So I think the only respite that there may be for those who are very closely abutting can be in terms of some reduction of the numbers in the courtyard. which is, I understand that's a reduction of 10% overall, but it's not changing the internal numbers. But I see that's the only way you're going to get a potential relief in. If the business goes well, it may be that you actually do utilise all of those 7 days a week. So that's why I'd be supportive of that amendment and allow the floor of this chamber to determine which way they go.
Thanks, Councillor Hart. Are there any speakers against this amendment? Councillor Pulford? Okay, I've got 3 hands up on the screen. I'll go Councillor Pulford. What did you want to...
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I feel like we can't say that we want to support local business and specifically this local business while also kind of kneecapping them before they get off the ground. So we've heard from the applicant tonight that he has been engaging well with residents and has reduced his original numbers down from 45 to 30 in the courtyard. He's also saying he's not going to, while the permit's for 7 days, he doesn't intend to open all 7 days, but occasionally as a small business, if you get a big booking for an event, you need to be licensed for that time of the event. So I don't, it's a courtyard in Coburg. I don't think there's going to be 30 people in that courtyard at all times. I think it's just about maybe for some events or, maybe on a particularly sunny afternoon, you have 30 people there. I get that for residents it's concerning, and I think Joe has proven by coming here tonight and speaking with a bunch of community support, people he knows, but also just residents, he sounds like a very approachable and reasonable person, but I fear we can't reduce numbers down. He's already listened and said, yeah, okay, 45 down to 30. And I get that you might be worried about a lot there, but he's also saying, I'm trying to run a business, I'm trying to provide employment in our community, I'm trying to provide, one of the 4 spaces in our community where people can get together. So I just really fear if we pass this amendment, we'll be setting him up for failure. We know that there was a place there in that premises beforehand that obviously did fail and that had fewer numbers. So, it's not like we do have some evidence here, I think. And I feel like we can take Joe on his word, given the testimonials he's received tonight from various people. So yeah, don't support this amendment, but support the amended officer rec overall.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. I'll see if there are any other speakers in favour of this amendment. Any other speakers against this amendment? Councillor Conlon? Mike?
So yeah, I think just wanted to reiterate some of the comments. I think the use of the QR code to get community input into the proposal is quite an interesting and different approach, which I haven't seen on council before. And I think as Councillor Davidson suggested, that also opens you up to criticism. But what we saw that it also did seem to open up a lot of people in the community who do support this proposal, and it is interesting that don't usually see people coming to planning meetings to support proposals. So I think that's unusual, and I think it's worth noting. And again, I think generally the site's currently, I think it's vacant now. I think it was a dog parlour, I think, at some point, but I think it's vacant. There's a whole bunch of vacant shops along that strip. I think it's really good, would be really good to get more activity along that strip. In general, we're trying to get more shops and services closer to where people live. There's not much of that in Coburg. If you live in that pocket of Coburg, it's a very far walk to get to any kind of shops or services. The proposal really is, in the broader context, quite modest. I mean, we're talking about a restaurant that is closing at the outdoor. Sorry, thanks. Is that okay? It's all right. I got it. Closing at 9 and 10 p.m. in the outdoor area between Wednesday and Saturday. The indoor part's closing at 10 and 11 o'clock. So, in terms of a restaurant, I don't think you can sort of reduce the hours of operation much further than that without seriously impacting the viability of the business. And in terms of the numbers, I'm also comfortable with supporting the 30 patrons outdoors. Again, I don't know if that was the VCAT determination, I'm not fully across the details, but it wasn't a determination, but it was the 30 figure was referenced in the VCAT. So I think even if it went to VCAT, it's I don't think it's worth contesting on on those grounds. Yeah. So in general, hang on, sorry. Yeah, I don't really think. I think there's a big risk in cutting down the proposal any further.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. In that case, I might put that amendment to the. Do you wish to exercise the right of reply? Okay, I might put that amendment to the vote then. All those in favour of this amendment? So that's 2. All those against? All right, that amendment is lost. So we go back to the substantive, and we've had 1 speaker for. I'll see if there are any speakers against the substantive on that. Any other speakers in favour of that one? Councillor Tapanos?
Thank you very much, Mayor and Councillors. I'll try to be brief because I believe the mover and the second of the motion did an excellent job in introducing this to the chamber, and I fully support their comments. But just to add, from my perspective, this is an exciting and a really welcomed addition to Coburg, and it's really going to do a lot of things for that neighbourhood activity centre. And we do want it to work. We want it to succeed. We know it's actually quite difficult to be setting up these businesses, and there's certainly a lot of risk involved in it. I've spoken to objectors and I've spoken to the applicant as well, and I'm fully confident that all efforts have been taken to mitigate against the noise that may emerge from the venue. I think that people have worked collaboratively to compromise on hours and paying numbers, and what's been proposed to us tonight is actually fair and reasonable and should be supported. I don't think it can be cut back any further. Just in summing up, I'm really hoping that this restaurant is a great success, a place that we can all go to and enjoy a meal and a glass of wine, and I wish it all success in the future, and I hope that it can receive a permit tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Tapanos. With that, I might put that one to the vote then, please. So all those in favour of this permit application? All those against? All right, that is carried unanimously. So I will now ask the officer, Keaton, if you could please outline the next steps.
Council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for buildings and works, use of the land for the sale and consumption of liquor associated with the food and drinks premises, and a reduction in the statutory car parking requirement at 75 Harding Street, Coburg, subject to the conditions contained with the amended officer recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions on the permit.
Thank you. So we've got 3 items left for this evening, and it is 8:10, so I'm just going to signpost that for councillors. We do have a full planning agenda this evening. So we're up to 5.3, which is 11 Harry Street in Brunswick West, planning application MPS/2022/478. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to disclose? No? Great. So, Keaton, I will ask you again, could you please present the report on this item?
Thank you.
Thanks.
The planning application at 11 Harry Street, Brunswick West, is for the construction of 3 double-storey dwellings. The application is at decision-making stage. The site is located on the southern side of Harry Street, currently occupied by a single-storey weatherboard dwelling with a tiled roof. To the west of the site is an unmade road on Council's road register, which forms part of the park, known as Brady Reserve, located to the immediate west. To the south is a discontinued lane, and to the east is a detached single-storey dwelling with a large backyard. Here's a couple of examples of contemporary developments nearby which have occurred in the immediate vicinity. The one on the right at 12 Harry Street is located directly opposite the site and also is adjacent to the park. The site is located in the neighbourhood residential zone. The proposal is for 3 double-storey dwellings with bedrooms at ground floor and living areas at the first floor. Each dwelling has private open space at ground floor and first floor balconies with views over the park. Single vehicle access is from a shared driveway along the western boundary. The application was advertised and received 11 objections, with the main issues being overdevelopment of the site, neighbourhood character, overshadowing, overlooking, and the traffic implications. A planning information and discussion meeting was held on 23rd of May, and no changes were agreed to. The proposed height at 9.3 metres complies with the planning scheme requirements, which allows for 10 metres on this site due to the slope of the land. The design is respectful and appropriately responds to the character of the street, noting the recent development of contemporary dwellings at 4 and 12 Harry Street as examples. The proposal provides increased opportunity for landscaping with 2 large trees in the front, in between dwellings and to the rear. The officer's recommendation requires conditions seeking to increase the eastern side boundary, the setbacks, and the space available for canopy tree planting to respect the open rear yard character and minimise amenity impacts to the eastern neighbour by way of overshadowing and minimising bulk. Well, these have been combined. It is Council Officer's recommendation that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued, with key considerations being the increase in the eastern side setbacks and the increase in space available for canopy tree planting that is clear to the sky. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we've got 2 objectors who have indicated that they wish to speak on this tonight. And first up, I believe we've got Marcus McLaughlin here in person. Oh, there he is. Thanks, Marcus. You've got the 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Marcus, and I live with my wife and 2 children at number 9 Harry Street in Brunswick West, next door to the proposed development at number 11. We are the only direct neighbours to the property. Whilst we would like to see the property developed, we have a number of concerns with the proposal, which we don't believe are fully addressed in the planning amendments. We believe the development is out of character for the immediate area, will have significant negative impacts on our neighbourhood character, and constitutes a development that is greater than the minimal change when taken in context with the surrounding streets in the NRZ1 zone. We are concerned about the overall size, including the height of the development in relation to the setbacks, even with the amended side setbacks of Unit 1 and 2 at 1 metre along our boundary to the east of the development. Our private open space will be dominated by buildings. This is particularly evident with Unit 2, which will extend close to the current fence line at about half a metre, 500 millimetres, beyond our deck for a distance of 4.5 metres. We request it to be considered that the first floor eastern side forward half setback of dwelling 2 be increased in line with the amended increase to the ground floor setback, and additionally that the rear half of dwelling 2's first floor be increased to a minimum of 2.5 metres to protect the afternoon sunlight and the overpowering of the structure on our private open space. This will mean the size of the upper level remains similar to the original proposal and is possible given the suggestion on page 86 that the whole development may well shift further west. There is a 1 metre strip of land on the western boundary that will already incorporate the current amendments, and we believe would easily incorporate this further change. In continuance of the concerns, the setback of Unit 1 and 2 is closer to our house than the current house is at by 0.3 of a metre. The non-compliance of the front setback is also a concern. The report suggests a variation of 1.48 metres is unlikely to be particularly noticeable. Well, we feel that this will be noticed, certainly by our family, as this is visible from our front western bedroom. Furthermore, we have additional concerns about the size in relation to the integration with Brady Reserve parkland. While the development sits close to the maximum height allowed under the height standards, the height at the western boundary will mean that the development appears to dominate the public open space. This is highlighted in the report, and we don't believe that the non-compliance is acceptable as suggested on page 86. In relation to the amenity, Harry Street is a no-through road, meaning any increase in traffic would be felt twofold, given that the cars will need to enter and exit from one direction, that being Henderson Street. In our discussion with residents in the street, this is one of the major concerns that's often raised. In 2021, VCAT acknowledged inappropriate overdevelopment in the immediate area in its decision to uphold the council's rejection of a 3-storey unit development on a very similar size block of land. I think it was slightly less than 100.
Thanks, Marcus. You could wrap it up in the next sentence or so.
Yes, we believe that the development is just too large. Developers are intent to squeeze as much as they can in order to maximise profit. We believe that this is not a solution to any housing crisis, nor that it provides low-cost or accessible housing, but rather is purely driven by one thing. Finally, I'd like to, regardless of the outcome of this, I'd like to thank the council and the planners in particular for their time and all of their respectful interactions.
Thank you, Marcus. Just what's happened on our Zoom screen? All right, well, I hope they will be able to turn their cameras back on when they make decisions. So we also have another objector here with us in the gallery, and that is Nick Dolby. Thanks, Nick.
Hello, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity. Nick Dolby. I live in West Brunswick. I know this property. It's close to my home. I also have a large scar on my leg from exploring the unmade laneway at the rear of this property when there was a lot of cut bamboo there. I object to this development not because of the failed opportunities it represents. I'm not saying that in any way planning and city development have in any way not performed on this and so on, but we have failed opportunities. We have an unmade road that is registered in the Merri-bek plan that has not been used as a road, has not been accessible for a road for at least 3 decades, and yet it is impacting upon the nature of this development. We have an unmade laneway, it's called, at the back of this property, and yet this is in fact not an unmade laneway, it's an extension of Brady Reserve. It's an extension of open public space, and it should be treated as part of that parkland. But instead they sit there in this limbo, except it's not just limbo, it's limiting this development. This development could have increased passive surveillance and engagement with both the rear parkland and the side parkland. It could have had a driveway on the eastern side, moving it further west, away from the neighbours and so on. But for various factors, it has failed in this. It's not, as I say, a failure of planning department or planning scheme, it is a failure of us to deal with these little pockets of land that are sitting in limbo and not happening. So my objection is it could have been done better. It could have been, we could have gotten rid of Rycroft Street, we could have actually proclaimed the unplanned, the unsealed laneway at the rear as part of public open space Brady Reserve, and then we could have encouraged this development to engage with both of those and move further away from their neighbours. That's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. So next up we've got Gianni Mancuso from MS Designs, who I think is joining us online. Yep, and he's speaking on behalf of the applicant group. There we go. You've got 3 minutes. Thank you. You're just on mute. Gianni, can you hear me?
Hi.
Perfect.
Hi,
You've
hi,
got
guys.
3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this application. I am a representative of the applicant from M3 Design. The first thing I'd like to, I guess, outline for everyone here tonight is the design principles that we pursued in formulating this design. We recognise the zoning, we recognise the planning scheme constraints and the context of the site. And what we have sought to do is provide a contemporary proposal that respects neighbouring properties and context, but also one that activates public space to a very, I guess, positive degree. What we've done is locate all the living spaces on the west to overlook the reserve, which allows for really, really good active surveillance over this space and potential activation over any other future upgrades that occur in this space. In addition to this, we also recognise the fact that there are these constraints in the planning scheme. For example, garden area, res code standards, parking, traffic and parking guidelines, which we comply with. So we don't agree with the assertion that it is an overdevelopment, given that we do comply with some of the with all of the relevant guidelines as set out in council's planning schemes. In addition to that, I do note that earlier in Keaton's summary of the proposal, he did mention that no changes were made following our consultation with neighbours. However, we possibly could have if there was a slightly more meaningful discussion and some of the points raised earlier by the objector were brought up, for example, increased side setbacks. I do note that during that consultation, it was more of a approach of, no, we don't want 3 dwellings, we want 2. However, if there was potentially a more reasonable approach, we could have come to an outcome. And I think that recognising the conditions council have sought to put onto any decision, that goes a way to addressing some of those concerns from the objector. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and that's all.
Thank you. I'll see councillors if there are any questions to put to the applicant or to the officers. Sorry, one sec. Oscar, was that a hand? Okay. Councillor Hart, and just unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to get clarity, particularly when you're talking about the issue of the setbacks, because what I'm hearing you say is that you're understanding some of the rationale behind the conditions that are placed now for setbacks. Is that right?
No, so what I'm trying to communicate is that we always go into objector consultation meetings with an open mind, and we didn't have any of those kinds of pointed discussions that could have resolved some of the neighbours' concerns. And if we were to have had those discussions, we could have approached it in a way that could have potentially resolved those concerns, like some of the setbacks that the objector was mentioning earlier. So, notwithstanding, we do comply along that boundary when we apply the res code envelope. I'm commenting about the potential to resolve something in an appropriate forum if everyone approaches it with an open mind. That's more so what my comment is about.
Thank you. I'll see if there are any other questions on that, or for the applicant or for the officer. If not, thank you for joining us. So, as there are no further questions, could I please ask for a motion from councillors? Councillor Hart, which motion do you have?
Thank you. I have my alternative motion.
Could you
I have.
let
Is
me
it
know what that is?
circulated? No?
There's been 1,000,001 motions circulated, so you're going to need to spell that out.
Okay.
And we'll see if you've got a seconder for it too.
Okay. Okay.
If you've got a time, perhaps, when that was emailed out? Okay. Yep.
It's changed.
I'm not.
Look at
Yeah.
the
Okay. It's the officer's motion with an addition to C1.
All right, could we
Yeah.
please scroll down just so we've got that
And
on
I'm
the
happy
screen?
to second.
Okay. Oh, yeah, 1C, we'll just scroll down. I will just bring that up and scroll down to make sure that we are all clear. Okay. All right, so for clarity, that says the first floor eastern side setback of dwelling 3 increased by a minimum of 1 metre to avoid creating a shear wall. This may result in the first floor okay. Oh. All right. Is that it?
And that next bit that says that C is actually 2. Yeah, that's right now.
All right. So, Monica, if you're able to look at what's up on the screen and make sure that's the amendment that you requested.
That is what I have in front of me.
Okay. Great. So that's
Yeah.
dwelling 2 kitchen increased to a minimum of 2.5 metres from title boundary, and then dwelling 3 increased by a minimum of 1 metre to avoid creating the shear wall. All right. Okay, so Councillor Hart, you'd like to move that. You've got Councillor Bolton as your seconder. Councillor Hart, would you like to speak to that alternative recommendation? Motion, sorry.
Yeah. Can I just say, I just really want to start off by saying I think this is a challenging development in any ways, and I'm certainly not speaking against some of the design, but I think one of the challenging issues...
Could you just hold your mic closer to you so people outside could hear? Thanks.
Sorry. Okay, I'll sit down.
Thanks.
I think one of the challenging issues, it is in a neighbourhood residential zone, a minimal change zone, and by the way of the design, and it's positioned now so that the units all face over the parkland, and that does change in some way the context of the neighbourhood zone, because it does mean that the neighbourhood zone, the characteristic of it's there, that it's largely single story and double story, but a lot of single dwellings in that area, and most of them which have quite large rear garden areas and rear backyards. So this design changes that, or this development changes that, and by virtue of that, it poses a different impact to the land which adjoins it, which is number 9 Harry Street, so that you've got largely quite a long development along that boundary, because that is the back then of all the other 3 residences. So I guess what the council resolution attempted to do was try and mitigate and address some of that impact, particularly to the back on the 3rd dwelling, and that was to bring that in with a setback of 2.5 metres, and they brought the 1st and the 2nd dwellings in with 1 metre. But there, I take the objector's point that still means there's a lot of bulk, and there's a lot of intrusion into that personal space that usually you wouldn't see with developments, particularly the other one we did today, where there was still a lot of backyard, so the impact for neighbours was not as great. And I note that council have attempted to mitigate that but my amendment was to also further look at the impact of the unit 2, and to try and move some of the rear of that, because that is situated very, very close to the boundary, and that is also open space and deck space of the neighbour. So I've been trying to, I guess, find some way to ensure that the impact is actually less for the resident at number 9. And I can certainly appreciate some of the challenges.
Great, thanks,
yeah.
Councillor Hart. Councillor Bolton is the seconder.
I don't think I've got anything to add. I sort of concur with the sorts of comments that Councillor Hart has raised about the impact of the shear wall on the eastern side of the development, on the, especially the next door neighbour, and the imposing element of that. And so I support, while this setback won't resolve all the issues for that neighbour, it will add a little bit of increased amenity if councillors vote for this alternative resolution.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Are there any speakers against this? Councillor Riley?
I've just got a question, clarification.
Yeah, question.
I just don't think it's unfortunate this wasn't put to the proponent just now in terms of questions, but so I'm going to ask the officers just to clarify what the implications of this are, because I've looked through the emails or tried to find what the advice is. I'm not sure if you've issued advice to us, but I'm just curious because we did talk about this on Monday night in terms of the impacts for shifting things, particularly with that type, the driveway, et cetera, et cetera. So so I'm just seeking clarity there, please.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor, and through the Mayor. So the proposal presently at the dwelling 2, second floor, as in the plans before Council tonight, has a setback at first floor level of 1.5 metres. The proposal is to increase that setback from the eastern boundary by a further metre, so to 2.5 metres. The impact of that would be to reduce the size of the first floor. So it's the kitchen area on the first floor that would be reduced in size as a result of the amendment.
Sorry to be clear, so that's just the first floor, not the ground floor?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We could probably ask an officer to show that on
and
screen.
Just the follow-up question, Mayor,
Yep.
if I can. Just has this got anything to do with the issues that were raised around the boundary and the fence boundary and that issue, do you believe, or not?
I might be speaking on behalf of the mover, but I don't believe so.
That's not my understanding either. No,
Okay.
I believe this was a separate issue of identifying areas that were going to be problematic, and it followed on from the discussion on Monday night.
All right, great. No other questions of clarification, Councillor Riley? Cool. So I'll see if there are any speakers against this motion. Any other speakers in favour of this? Oh, Councillor Tapanos?
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. I'll be brief again, just to say that overall this is a good development and there's some good features to it architecturally, and it is a welcome addition. But as the objector and residents have told us through their submissions, it is a street that ends at the park. It is a street which is predominantly of single character with a few double-storey buildings. This adds to that double-storey building, but as a compromise, I think the setbacks that have been requested and been proposed are fair and adequate in what is effectively the most restrictive zone that we have in our residential areas, the neighbourhood residential zone. When this zone was first introduced, the Minister at the time spoke about protecting backyards from overshadowing and encroachment. And I think that there's always a balance of trying to get good size apartments, but also being respectful to the rear open space of abutting residents. And I think with the additional setback, this application is now acceptable and a good application to be supported. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Tapanos. I'll see if there are any other speakers on this. No, if not, we might put that one to a vote then. All those in favour of this motion? All those against? All right, that is carried unanimously. Okay, so Keaton, would you please be able to outline the next steps?
Council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the construction of 3 double-storey dwellings at 11 Harry Street, Brunswick West, subject to the conditions contained with the alternative recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged, at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions on the permit.
Thanks, Keaton. So next up is 5.4, and that is 25 Gale Street, Brunswick, planning permit application MPS/2022/709. Are there any conflicts of interest for councillors to disclose? No? All right. In that case, I will ask Alex Osborne, Senior Urban Planner, to please present the report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is an application for a planning permit at 25 Gale Street, Brunswick East. The application is for the construction of a multi-storey mixed-use development with a commercial on ground floor, dwellings above and communal rooftop area, and for a reduction in the car parking requirement. The application is at decision stage. It's proposed to be 6 storeys with a building height of 16.7 metres. Commercial tenancy of 119 square metres is at ground floor. 10 apartments are located at the upper levels. 4 car spaces are provided, requiring a reduction of 11 spaces, and there are 22 on-site bicycle spaces. All dwellings are fully accessible. Land on both sides of Gale Street is zoned mixed use. Land to the west along Lygon Street is zoned commercial 1. The design and development overlay schedule 19 sets out the built form provisions for the site. The site is located within the Brunswick Major Activity Centre. The planning scheme contemplates significant housing growth at this location. Gale Street has a mixed character with industrial, residential and commercial uses all evident within the streetscape. Buildings along Gale Street are typically low rise of 1 and 2 storeys. The subject site is in the middle of the image on screen and is occupied by a single storey warehouse building. Neighbouring buildings are single and double storey. In the background you can see 8 to 10 storey mixed use buildings fronting Lygon Street. At the rear of the site is, to the west, is council-owned land that occupies land fronting Lygon Street and currently has the maternal and child health centre and a heritage substation. A laneway also exists directly to the rear of the subject site. Opposite the site, still on Gale Street, are industrial and commercial buildings. These are located to the east. And 11 objections were received to this application. Key issues raised include the construction impacts and disruption, car parking, access to daylight and sunlight, the height and stories, front setback, light and air easement, neighbourhood character and visual bulk. A planning information and discussion meeting occurred on the 6th of June 2023 and was attended by 7 objectors. Key considerations for this one are building height and car parking. With respect to building height, the maximum building height of 16.7 metres complies with DDO 19. A street wall height of 10.2 metres is considered acceptable due to the 3 metre upper level recessive setback. In terms of car parking, so 2 car spaces are provided for the dwellings and 2 of the spaces are for the commercial unit. The car parking reduction is supported due to the on-site bicycle storage of 22 spaces, convenient access to public transport and bicycle routes, and the site's location within the major activity centre. For loading, we've got the commercial spaces at the rear that are able to be utilised by the tenancy. The site frontage is also maintained for curbside parking. Given the strong alignment with strategic planning policy, it is recommended that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued for the proposal, subject to the recommended conditions that ensure high levels of ESD are delivered, public works to provide an attractive street verge, 100% of apartments are accessible, and improved bedroom outlooks to Lightwells. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So, we have a few objectors actually who've indicated that they wish to speak. I'll see if we've got Giles Ingram here in person. Thanks, come on through.
Thank you, councillors. Just before I get my 3 minutes, I'd just like to explain that I'm the owner of number 7 Gale Street, but you've been given a little map of where the objectors came from, and my wife actually owns number 23. Now that number 23 has not got a blue dot on it, neither have objectors from number 1, and I believe there are quite a few others who said they were going to object, and they support the reduction in certain things that I'm going to talk about. So I just wondered if maybe I might go a little bit over the 3 minutes.
Well, we haven't started yet, so
Yeah.
you can get started now. Thank you.
So I'll start. First of all, this is a multi-use zone. Now, the main part of this is it says a multi-use zone is to provide for a range of residential, commercial, industrial and other uses which complement the mixed-use function of the locality. Now, along that section of Gale Street, between the 2 lanes at the end, the area actually employs 40 people. And these are not residents. 40 people are working in this street. And that's important because if the whole side of the street had a precedent established to sort of turn it into residential more so, their jobs, they'll go. It's also important to realise that the mixed use, what is a mixture? In this case, we've got 10 apartments, about 18 bedrooms, and on 6 floors, and the only mixed bit or commercial benefit to the community is 1/3 of the bottom floor. 1/3 in this whole development. Now, I don't really think that's classified as a mixed. It seems to me that the commercial aspect of it is only to satisfy a regulation that there must be some. But effectively, and it's been proven in a lot of apartment blocks like that, the bits underneath don't really function really well or add much to the community. Now, I want to make one thing really clear. We as objectors, I as an objector, agree fully with the strategy plan that things are changing. The population density is going up. There are going to be residential developments in the street. That's going to happen. And it would be good that it happens because, for example, the factory that is going to be renovated at this stage, even though the plan says it's got a tin roof, it's actually asbestos, lots of it. So it's great that it's being developed. So please don't get the idea that we're saying no development here. It's just a matter of making something that complements the street rather than having an envelope of allowable development space that has got maximum profitability for the developer, because that's all it is. If you said to me, okay, I've got a property there. I want you to get as much money out of it as possible. That's it. So that's just a basic argument.
Thanks.
And that is...
Thanks, Giles. If you could wrap it up in the next sentence.
Sorry?
If you could just wrap it up in the next sentence as you're over
Right,
time.
okay, I'll just
Thanks.
think about the sentence. Parking. The parking was deemed by the council not to be a problem. They took a traffic survey or a parking survey. It was taken on a Friday afternoon and Saturday between 12 midday and 9 a.m.
Thanks,
Parking
Giles. You're
in Gale
about a
Street's
minute
problem.
over our time. So thank you for coming in. We've got to get through everyone, and we did start that after your first bit, so I have had a bit more of a buffer in there. Thank you. So next up, we've got Kit Harvey, who is here in person too.
Thanks so much, councillors, for your time. I'm Kit Harvey. Number 1 Gale Street's a family property. I also operate a business out of the warehouse at 22 to 26, directly over the road from the proposed development. The parking surveys that were done, as Giles was probably about to say, were done not at times where we're looking at sort of peak activity in the street in terms of employees who come to work, in terms of businesses in full operation, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. The car parking in that street is basically a Wild West situation. We're looking at businesses that need trucks to deliver goods. They're manufacturing businesses. They're not just retail. They're not just people coming and going. There's logistics. There's a big cleaning company, a joiner. We make picture frames, so we're looking at very significant, sizable trucks, constant postage, constant deliveries, and it's absolutely untenable, and that's pre this property being developed. It's very hard to run a business, as I'm sure you can understand, particularly in the manufacturing and basically in businesses that rely on big trucks coming through. There's nowhere to stop or, no car parks to use as it is. So it's very challenging for businesses. I also think that, to reiterate what Mr. Ingram said, we aren't anti-development at all. We're just anti this development in its current state. The fact that it comes all the way out with no setback whatsoever from the footpath is totally out of keeping with the entirety of all the large or substantial properties on the western side of Gale Street. There's 1 or 2 small houses that come to the footpath, but every other building of significant size and stature is set back. And I think with some minor amendments, we'd absolutely be for a development in this area, because I think it's common sense that Brunswick's growing. High density housing is a great thing. We just want it to be done in the right way and keeping in character and the visual density of the street as it exists currently. This is a dominating property that would be reduced by introducing and encouraging a setback. And I think it would also limit the effect on parking if the parking reduction requested was slightly different. I think 4 car parks is laughable for something of this size. And even a modest increase would be definitely go towards creating a more favourable permit situation. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Oh, of the objector? Yep. Yeah, just unmute yourself.
Love to answer a question.
Hi. I was just wondering if you raised the issue of setbacks either with the council planners or with the developer and what the response was.
Setback as in...
the setbacks you proposed
from the footpath?
From the footpath.
It was mentioned extensively in the meeting regarding objections, the setback from the footpath and the fact that no other large building on the western side of Gale Street is fronted right up to the footpath. That was definitely raised. That was certainly raised.
Great.
By multiple objectors.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you. Next, we've got Sue Brennan, who is here in person.
this opportunity. Have a business that runs out of 23, so right next door to the proposed construction. My concerns are mostly about loss of natural light if the proposal does go out to the boundary. Already on that side, we've got 5 huge windows that will be overshadowed by the building. But the main issue will be if it goes to the boundary, we also will get no light in from the front balcony window. So that's a concern. We've been in the building for 25 years, so I both live and work in Brunswick. It's a wholesale business, and so we're one of the ones Kit just mentioned that has deliveries and product going out every day. Parking is terribly insufficient at the moment. I often find myself leaving work at 6 o'clock in the middle of winter and walking 3 blocks away to my car. So, you know, it just happens regularly. That I did start taking pictures when this came up of the street at different times during the day from the balcony to show how full it was. And I think that as well as for those that work and live there, we also have to consider the people that will be visiting these 10 apartments. It's not just the dwellers of the apartments, and yes, there is good local public transport, not necessarily if you're taking your kids to sporting games and stuff, so I think that there will be more cars attached to the size of those apartments, but it's also the people that will be visiting them. So having as many parks in the building or in the development as possible would be great. Again, not against development, it's going to happen, it needs to happen, but it would be great if that setback could be taken into consideration. And yes, we did raise it a lot in the planning information session. That was probably one of the biggest concerns. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Sue. Next, we've got Connor Kessler, who might be, yes, he is online. Great, Connor, can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Just before you start the clock, I just thought I'd note that the live stream isn't working. So I apologise.
That's important. All right.
I apologise for repeating any points.
We will work on that right now. Can we just proceed with the objection? All right, so we've just checked our phones and it looks like it's working. So we might go ahead with your objection and hope that it stays working. All right, thanks. Thanks, Connie. You've got the 3 minutes.
Thank you. So hi everyone, thank you for taking the time to listen to my objection. I'm a resident on Gale Street and I'm here specifically to speak to the parking overlay that's going to put pressure on the already bursting at the seams parking situation in Gale Street. I'd like to note that I do endorse higher density living and understand that in our current situation in Melbourne we do need a higher density living, but I just want to make sure that we keep quality front of mind while we do that. So first, I've got 3 sort of arguments. The first being that just the reality of having to own a car in Melbourne. The applicant regularly refers to future occupants of the building and how they will utilise the fantastic public transport in the area to get around Melbourne. I live here and I do use that fantastic public transport, but I still have a car. And the reason for that is if I'm going in and out of the city, that's totally fine. But anytime I want to go east or west, it takes a really long time to get there by public transport. As an example, to get to High Point Shopping Centre, which is our big close shopping centre, it's a 30-minute drive, but it's an hour and 13 minutes on public transport. To get to where my family lives in Croydon, it's a 40-minute drive or an hour and 44-minute public transport trip. Or to get just down to, across to Abbotsford, to Moondog Brewery, for instance, it's a 20-minute drive or a 46 public transport trip. So that's an average of an extra around 150% increase on time of travel. So the reality is that in a city like Melbourne that's made for cars, you really do need a car. The second argument I've got is the impacts of the poor quality developments on future owners and tenants. So I actually happen to have a relative at the moment who's living in an apartment in an inner suburb that doesn't have a car park. And it's an absolute nightmare for them, and they'll be looking to move out shortly. No parking is bad for future tenants, and the Victorian Government standard has the parking standards for a reason. I do understand that Merri-bek Council has a target on urbanisation and density, but we shouldn't be achieving these at the cost of quality. And applications like these hinge on, theories that don't necessarily translate into practice, and it's all at the expense of the local residents and the future occupants as well. Lastly, I just want to note the actual location of the lot is really, really prime for a car park. So it backs onto a laneway that is actually extra wide, and it's a really unique position within Brunswick that usually has quite tight laneways. So it's really, really perfect for an underground car park. You can swing in and out, and every other apartment block that's in there, and another one that was just approved recently through this through the council, is all making use of the access via the back. So just to close, I think it's really important that we have high density living, but I want to make sure that we do it with quality front of mind, to make sure that we're actually building apartments that people really want to live in, that's actually solving the housing crisis.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, actually, I'll see first, is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak as an objector on this item? Yep, got you there with the hand up. Come on in. Thanks. So just, what was your name?
Chris Forward.
Chris Forward, and then we'll get into it. 3 minutes. Thanks.
We're a post-building studio. We're a designer furniture brand in at 13 to 17 Gale Street. And I appreciate it's late and that you instructed us not to repeat previous objections, but the parking situation is absolutely atrocious on that street. We have, like Kit, a manufacturing business. We have deliveries. We have clients. We have people coming in and out, and we regularly have to turn away deliveries because of people parking illegally, including in front of our driveway, including Connor. Look at you. Look, and we just ask that the council perhaps look at the small business impacts, above a developer sort of having to put in a basement car park or whatever they need to do. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming in. All right, so next up we have Effie Tengalakis joining us online, who is speaking on behalf of the applicant group. Fantastic. Effie, you've got 3 minutes. And you're just on mute.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Sorry, delayed. Hello. Thank you for having me and giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. I've listened to all the objectors as well. I'd just like to quickly start off by thanking Alex from the Town Planning Department, and actually the Town Planning Department as a whole. Their professionalism with respect to this application has been outstanding, and the assistance and efficiency that they've handled this application with. So I just want to mention that. In terms of this application itself, we've been very careful with where you need to, propose these types of developments, and you need to pick an area that's suitable and that fits within the strategic directions of council. And this site being located within the Brunswick Activity Centre is ideal for this type of development, because what council's strategic direction says, it seeks to, accommodate substantial growth in activity centres. So you pick the right spot, and you have to make sure that the right spot is in an activity centre, and that's where we are. So in terms of the development itself, in terms of the height, we've been very, very careful with ensuring that the height complies. It does. We are at a good height and in compliance with the design and development overlay. just want to make sure that we understand that and that we're really happy that we have 100% of the proposed apartments within the building are accessible to persons with limited mobility. And they actually receive the 100% rating instead of the 50% that's required. So I just wanted to touch on that as well. I did listen to Sue, who works next door to us on the south side. There's actually what's called a light and air easement on that side, and we fully comply with the requirement there. The habitable, well, there are no habitable room windows to the south side of our site. And therefore, because of that, they're assessed obviously very differently if they were a habitable room window. And the normal requirements that would apply don't in this case. I'm conscious of my time running out. I will talk about parking. We do understand that council has gone to a pretty big effort with respect to their parking policy. And it says that visitor car parking is not required in activity centre sites. And we do propose 4 on-site car parking spaces. And council says that if you're going to be providing a development such as this in an activity centre, parking can be reduced. So long as it's within an activity centre, which we are, we tick that box, so long as it has excellent access to public transport, which we do, and so long as we provide increased provision of bicycle parking, which we do. So in terms of the bicycle parking rate that's required for this development, there's a rate of 2 spaces that's required, and we actually have 22.
Thanks. If you could wrap it up in the next sentence. Thanks.
I'm happy to take questions. I've got a lot more to say, but I won't. But if you've got questions, go for it.
Great, thank you. So I'll see councillors. So Councillor Bolton's got a question for, was that the applicant?
For the applicant?
Yeah, great.
Well, probably a couple of questions, but the first one is, did you consider responding to objectors about the question of the front setback?
As in at the upper levels?
I got the impression it was from the objectors who spoke just then that it was from the front, from the ground floor.
There's no non-compliances with the front setback.
Okay.
There is a marginal non-compliance at the rear. Is that what you were referring to?
No, the objectors said from the front. Yeah. Okay.
No,
Right.
there's no non-compliances with the front setback.
Great.
And just my second question, I mean, I missed the planning and information discussion meeting with objectors and developer. I had something else on, so I couldn't attend. But I got the impression from the report that there were no real problems with the parking in the area. Did you attempt to make any sort of modifications when the objectors talked to you about the nature of this being a manufacturing commercial area and the parking issues?
Well, we thought about it, but then if we did increase the parking supply, or if we did increase the number of car parking spaces that were on site, we would actually be in contradiction with council's policy. I understand that the people that work in this street or in this area do already experience parking issues and pressures, but that's not as a result of this development. They're already there. And having regards to our traffic engineering assessment, along with council's cross-checking of that assessment and council's traffic engineering's own assessment, I mean, they both agreed with each other entirely in that the development isn't expected to cause additional traffic problems. In fact, the movements were really low in terms of traffic generation, only 4 additional traffic movements per day. And seeing as the policy, combined with the policy, council's policy that says, you know, don't provide too many car parking spaces in these locations, and combined with council's traffic engineers and our traffic engineers assessment, which agreed, no, we didn't think that it would be warranted.
Thanks. I'll see if there are any other questions from councillors on this. Councillor Riley?
Thanks, Effie. Can you just confirm that those cars that will access the site do so from the laneway, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, and the laneway is really good actually. It's well made, it's drained, it's wide, wider than normal, which is perfect.
Great, thank you. I'll see if there are any final questions for either the applicant or for officers. Anything? You've got a... Can you just unmute it? Yeah.
Apologies. Can I have a clear clarification on what is meant by habitable rooms, please?
That's to the officer, so...
Thank you, Councillor, through the Mayor. So for residential applications in residential zones, the planning provisions talk about habitable rooms and daylight to habitable rooms. I think what's being discussed in the chamber tonight is access to daylight to commercial properties within the mixed-use zone, of which the planning scheme is silent on the impacts on windows to a commercial property or a non-residential property.
Great. Thanks, Phil. I'll see if there are any final questions. And if not... Okay, yes. Are you... Yep.
So my question to the planner is just a question about that was raised about a lightened air easement and how much that will relieve the situation of the person with the business at 23 Gale Street.
Thanks, councillor. The light and air easement's basically on the land to prevent any buildings from being built on top of it. It doesn't go any further than that. So it just says for this width to this height, you can't build over that. And the apartment building doesn't propose to build over that area that's laid over the property.
So it's just like a gap between the buildings, is that
on the subject site? That's
yeah.
right, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, last call for questions. No? All right. If not, councillors, could I please have a motion? I've got Councillor Riley with a hand up. What are you moving?
The officer recommendation.
Great. I'll see if you've got a seconder for that. Anyone who wishes to second that? I'll second it then. Oh, wait, Councillor Pulford, did you want to second it? All right, that's a bit neater than having me second it as the chair. All right, Councillor Riley, as the mover.
Yeah. Thanks to all of the objectors for presenting on this. It's really good to hear this. I have to say, in terms of sort of some of the hopes and dreams that you have tonight, coming to the chamber and expressing to me here, when I've been dealing with hundreds, literally scores of emails on Harding Street and all the other matters tonight, and I've been talking to people on the phone, I've been dealing on emails, it's very hard for us to put up any amendments at this time of the night because it's a legal document. So I just wanted to say that. I really would have loved to have spoken or heard from you earlier. It's just almost impossible to do that. So I just need to get that off my chest. I use this street regularly. A lot of the parking issues in the street are because there are driveways or crossovers. So people don't park there because they're businesses where people can park in off the street or they can use their forklifts and so on. So a lot of the street doesn't have curbing for that reason, which adds to the issue of parking. It's not, I'm just explaining this because it's an important part of the context. It's really important to say that the parking advocates are actually arguing for 9 more cars to come into this street and use the laneway to park with the other 4, which will create more congestion on the street. We see many examples of buildings where we reduce the car parking because those residents move in and they undertake to use the car shares, which is where there are numerous ones within this area. I live nearby. And whilst I know people have to walk 3 blocks to get to their business because of that, we really literally don't have any more parking that we can provide on the street. you can either reduce or try to reduce the amount of people relying on cars and therefore having to drive and to park them, or you can actually force the constructors to have to provide bedrooms for their cars at the cost of 80 to 100,000 or more per car, which adds to the cost of the housing. So it does have an impact on housing issues. So this is really difficult to sort of hear this stuff tonight and not realise that there were so many concerns about it. It would have been good to have talked about them earlier. The actual design of this building, and Effie sort of addressed a lot of this, is really exemplary in many ways. It's got every apartment is accessible, or has a fairly, not to the highest standard, but has a standard of accessibility which we don't often get in the chamber here. Actually, this building will remove a crossover and create, ironically, an on-street car park. But no one's mentioned that. But that's what's in the officer's report. And as I've just said, by doing this, we're going to actually create an on-street car park because the other cars will be going in through the back. I have to say, the rubbish and the dumping in this street is appalling. And you'll see the sign that I've had put there because
Thanks, Councillor
we get
Riley,
this
you've hit
happening,
time.
and this is
To
really
wrap
important that we
it
do
up
that.
in the next sentence.
And I will do that, but it complies on so many measures. The height, it's complying to the preferred height.
Thanks,
and
Councillor Riley.
and
You've well and truly gone over.
It also has
Can you
all
just
the
please
bedrooms
wrap
on
it
the
up?
northern side of the building, which means
Can
they will
you-
get really good.
Councillor Riley, you've
they will
gone
really
like
get-
40 seconds
They
over.
will really get good amenity in their apartments.
All right, thanks. Councillor Pulford is the seconder.
Yeah, I think Councillor Riley pointed out some of the good parts of this development. There's an average kind of sustainability rating, the NatHERS rating of 7.7 stars. There's going to be 9 kilowatts of solar on the roof. Gale Street's just behind Lygon Street, and it kind of, this development would back up to Lygon Street. I mean, it's got the laneway in the middle, but, you know, this is like prime inner city location where we need to grow rather than developing on the city fringes. We need to increase density, and this is the prime area to do it. It's close to Lygon Street, which is a major transport corridor. This area is slated to change. This is one of the first developments that is changing to that kind of scale that the planning scheme allows and that we've set out. So understand that residents and people, you know, in the street or businesses in the street are concerned by that change. I think, you know, this is the start of that change, and it's necessary. It's what we need to do for climate reasons, for other sustainability reasons, for you know, building more social. We can build a stronger social community as well with more services in a denser area. So the other thing, just on the setback, I hear that residents are worried about it going right to the front of the boundary. The bottom floor will be commercial, and so that's what it says in the report, is that it's generally, these kind of buildings are set to the boundary. You know, it's one of the 6-level apartment blocks, so it's going to go to the boundaries, and if there's commercial tenancy, people can walk in and out from the street. You're not going to necessarily set that back too much. But I understand that, you know, it's more of an impact right there. But I'm happy to support the officer recommendation. You know, this is part of our changing city. It is tough, and I'm not going to deny that, but it's also part of our responsibility as an inner city area to increase housing supply in a housing crisis, but also, you know, to grow here where there are services existing and where we can improve on those rather than building those on the city's fringes and, you know, expanding to more farmland and other nature areas. That's all I'll say. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Are there any speakers against this motion? Any other speakers in, was it against or in favour? Okay, Councillor Bolton? Yes. Oh, is it? Thanks.
Somehow it didn't work.
It's all right.
I will speak in favour of this proposal, although I do have some misgivings. My reasons for speaking in favour is because it is so rare to get an application that is within the preferred height limit. Almost every application that comes before this committee is going above the height limit, and quite frequently the council actually passes developments above the height limit. And I sort of feel that that is, we are, losing some control over height limits in this city as a result of that. And there are some positive features, especially the 100% accessible apartments. But I do have misgivings, and people have explained them tonight. And I know that a lot of people don't realise they can contact councillors ahead of these meetings, and that's probably what happened. I had something else on the night of the meeting that you had with the developer, so I wasn't able to attend. But if I had been able to attend, I would have tried to move an amendment. Sometimes you can move simple amendments on the night of a council meeting, a planning meeting, but anything that requires redesign, like you can accidentally move an amendment that causes something else to be problematic. So it is difficult to move these in advance, and I wish more of what you said was reflected in the report that came to councillors, because then that would have rung some alarm bells to me. And the comments about it retaining this as a proper mixed-use zone and not just being purely residential, because I think areas like this where it's a combination of industrial, commercial, residential tend to be vibrant areas, and I think like a working area. And I think these are vibrant areas, but it does mean, you do have, trucks and, all sorts, and vans as well as domestic traffic. And the issue of the traffic chaos from the fact that it has lots of trucks and so forth doing deliveries is missing in the report. And anyway, I wish I'd known some of this in advance, but I also think that it is also quite possible there could have been a much worse development on the street, because literally pretty much every Palm meeting, developers are going way above the height limit, and including going for zero parking developments as well. So it could have been much worse, because that's some of what's happening in the city. So anyway, that's just to explain my point of view.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. I'll see if there are any speakers against this item. Any other speakers in favour? Favour? Yep, great. Of this item, that's Councillor Conlon.
Also echoing some of what Councillor Bolton said, that essentially the development basically ticks all the boxes of the planning scheme, particularly in terms of height and the setbacks. So I understand one of the amendments that you're proposing, Kit, around having a ground floor setback. It sounds like a fairly small, reasonable thing to ask for, but in practice, what that means for us to do is to scale back a development like this by, say, 1 metre for sort of the whole. I think for the whole development would mean almost an absolute definite appeal from the applicant and go to VCAT. And because we'd be asking the applicant to scale the building back beyond what the planning scheme allows, because it fits within the sort of envelope of the planning rules, then it would go to VCAT, and VCAT will just be thrown out the door. It's a tricky planning ground to kind of contest and ask for that amendment, even though it seems small. So it's similar to what Councillor Bolton said. Because it is sort of unusual to get developments, particularly within these activity centres, that tick all the boxes, even though the boxes are crap. They're not very good boxes that have been written by the state government. But it is sort of, we are sort of more constrained than what the community realises sometimes.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. I'll see if there are any other speakers on this item. If not, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this application? All those against? That was carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. So, Alex, if you're able to outline the next steps.
Thanks, Mayor. The council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the construction of a multi-storey mixed-use development and reduction in the car parking requirement, subject to conditions contained within the recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from the date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions on the permit.
Thanks, Alex. Our final application for this evening is 5.5, which is 10 Ballarat Street in Brunswick, amendment to planning permit MPS/2018/856/A. Are there any conflicts of interest to disclose on this? No. If not, I will ask Vita, our planning coordinator, to present the report.
Thanks very much.
Actually, sorry, just as we're getting there, we're getting close to time. Could I just move that we have an extension to go from 9:30 to 10? All right, I'll move it. Councillor Pavlidis to second. We're all in favour of that. Okay, thanks, Vita.
Thank you very much. So this is an application at 10 Ballarat Street for an amendment to an existing permit for a multi-storey mixed-use development. The site is on the northern side of Ballarat Street, west of Sydney Road and adjacent to the upfield shared path and rail corridor. The surrounds are characterised by a mix of 2-storey commercial buildings, 8-storey mixed-use apartments and some single-storey dwellings. The site is in a mixed-use zone and affected by design and development overlay, environmental audit overlay and the parking overlay. It's within the Brunswick Activity Centre, which is an area identified for significant housing growth, and preferred built form outcomes are informed by the design and development overlay. The site benefits from an existing planning permit that allows the construction of an 8-storey mixed-use development plus a rooftop level, and the image on the left on screen shows that. The amended development, as shown on the right-hand side, is a totally new design which proposes a 10-storey building with a publicly accessible communal open space adjacent to the outfield shared path. And some of the key changes include the provision of 84 additional dwellings, 98 fewer car parking spaces, so a reduction in car parking is sought, 600 additional square metres of communal open space and 107 additional bicycle parking spaces. During public notice, 4 objections were received, with issues raised including building height, overshadowing and car parking. Subsequent to the notice, the permit applicant submitted discussion plans contemplating a reduction in height to the eastern component of the development by 1 level in response to concerns, particularly in relation to the interface with 8 Ballarat Street, which is an apartment building under construction. These changes will reduce amenity impacts to that interface. In assessing the application, officers note that the amended development has a number of positive attributes, including a 7.5-star energy rating, 5-star Green Star design, and net community benefit through the provision of publicly accessible communal open space adjacent to the upfield bike path. The proposal also offers a generally high level of internal amenity, and the car parking reduction is appropriate in this location, given that the site benefits from a range of alternative transport methods and some car share parking on site is provided. However, the proposed 10-storey scale would be taller than other development in the area and would be highly visible from long-range views. As a result, a condition of the recommendation requires the deletion of 1 level. Subject to this condition, the proposal is considered to represent an acceptable response to the emerging scale of the area and the objectives of the design and development overlay. And so subject to those permit conditions contained in tonight's recommendation, including that reduction of the building height by 1 storey, the proposed development is expected to make a positive contribution to the public realm, and it's therefore recommended that a notice of decision to grant an amended planning permit be issued. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Vita. So we have one objector who's indicated that they wish to speak, and I believe we've got David Passarella online, and he's here on behalf of Ballarat Street Proprietary Limited. Okay. David, can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. You've got 3 minutes to outline your objection.
Thank you, Councillors. David Passarella, partner at Colin Biggers Paisley. I act for Ballarat Street. They are also known as Brunswick Yard Developments. They are the owners of the adjacent site to the east at 8 Ballarat Street. The site my client owns is an 8-level residential development that is in the process of being constructed and for the most part sold, or 70% sold. So this proposal has raised some serious concerns with the prospective purchasers of those apartments. This site, along with our client site, has had a substantial history with respect to the way it was contemplated to be developed. It was always contemplated that the two sites would be designed and developed as one combined site, so that they shared a central courtyard that mirrored each other with sort of U-shaped buildings around it. The result of that was that the amenity impacts created by each development was minimal on each other. The proposal that's now being sought in terms of the amendment turns its back on that process, and that was a negotiated process where deeds of agreements were entered into with the previous owners, and in some respects they're assigned to this current owner. There are some positive parts of this development, that's for sure, and there's parts that are applaudable. The way it interfaces with the rail is something to be admired, and the facade treatments on street facade are highly architectural and elaborate. However, the building does create some significant amenity impacts to our client site. It significantly overshadows. For the most part, after 3 p.m, our clients' communal open space will be overshadowed permanently and that's the only open space that those residents have. Given the change in orientation of the building from the U-shaped building from the previous scheme, the Bruce Henderson architect scheme, it now provides a western interface which is quite flat and has significant impact in terms of visual bulk. The proposal sits not comfortably with the DDO 18. The DDO 18 has a side setback to residential areas, which is preferred, and has a 19-metre height control. The proposal, as advertised, reaches 33 metres, so that's a 75% increase in height over a preferred height control. And we're not saying, I might leave it at that because I just realised my time is all
David,
up.
yes.
So in short, we say the building creates some significant impacts to our client site that we hope you have regard to in your consideration.
Thanks, David. Are there any other people in attendance in the gallery who are objecting to this proposal? No? All right. We've got 3 people who have indicated that they wish to speak on behalf of the applicant, and 1 person here in support of the application. So I'll see if we've got Damien Isles from Hanson Partnership here in person. Thanks, Damien. You've got the 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, councillors. We know it's late and we thank you for your patience as the last item. I did have things that I wanted to say tonight, and I'm a little bit surprised by the objection you've just heard from the solicitors acting for the developer next to this proposal. What I wanted to say this evening was that Councillor Conlon talked about ticking the box. And we wanted to address you tonight about a proposal that we say thinks outside the box. This is an application that is an amendment to an approved permit. The land at 10 Ballarat Street was sold in 2021 via an expression of interest process. The sale included the planning permit for an orthodox build-to-sell 9-storey apartment development, immediately adjacent to the lawyer's proposal for 8 stories. Global developer Hines bought the land with the intention of delivering their first build-to-rent project in Australia. It's worth $90 million. It's in the Brunswick Activity Centre, Anstey Urban Village, mixed-use zone, and we seek 1 story above the approved permit. The officers have worked pretty hard on us to improve the development. They want to take a level off, which we've resisted, but we accept. You take a level off this building, it's 2 metres higher than an existing planning permit, and it is 1 level higher than the height of the development that the lawyer next door says breaches the DDO, offends the sales, is going to renege on a deal between 2 sites that had an agreement that were developed in partnership. That is not true. The matter went to VCAT, it settled under mediation, their project is underway, this land has been sold, and the sale process has led to Hines coming in, setting a design competition to bring 2 of Melbourne's best architects to Merri-bek. Breathe Architecture have a very long history of delivering design excellence in this municipality, and Cox Architecture do that globally. Hines have the capital to deliver outstanding buildings and want to do a build to rent and improving the ESD performance of this development. It's going from 7 stars to 7.5 star NATO rating, but it's building this building to a 5-star Green Star standard, the first of its kind in the Brunswick Activity Centre. But the thing that's the gesture here is the 1,100 square metres that's being delivered to the public along the upfield rail corridor. It'll be delivered under a Section 173 agreement, so it's done on title. It will provide landscape and it provides space to accommodate the elevated rail and generosity that is badly needed along the upfield bike path. There's many more things I'd like to say, councillors, but thanks for your time, and I know you're going to hear from the architect and the developer, so we do appreciate it.
Thank you, Damien. Next up, we've got Simon Houseseger.
Mayor, I just have a question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Pulford. That was for Damien.
Potentially, or it could be, I guess, for the applicant as well. I'll just ask it, and whoever's best to answer.
Yeah.
I know that this is an amendment to a plan, and it's not just increasing the kind of existing plans by a couple of stories, it's completely redesigning it. Can you tell me the difference in the number of dwellings between this new proposal before us tonight compared to the one that's currently been approved? And maybe officers might be able to chime in with how many dwellings would there be if we did the 9 stories as recommended by officers?
Damien, are you able to answer that?
I can.
Great.
There's 167 that were approved and 200, and just let me get the number exactly right.
What does that equal to in numbers?
247 is proposed.
Okay.
And 22 would be removed as part of the condition. So that brings it down to 225.
Great, thanks for that.
Yeah.
All right, we've mathed our way to that one. Thanks for that. All right, we'll bring in Simon.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Councillor.
My apologies, Mayor, but along the same lines, I wanted to get an indication of the diversity of dwellings, 1-bedders, 2-bedders, 3-bedders.
Yep.
And any disability adaptation of the dwellings.
Great. Damien.
Yes. Okay. I'll answer the second question first. So accessibility is at 68% of all apartments are designed as accessible dwellings. In terms of the ratio, the approval has 31 one-bedroom, 112 two-bedrooms and 20 three-bedrooms. This build-to-rent proposal has 57 studios, 138 one-bedrooms, 48 two-bedrooms and 4 three-bedrooms.
Thank you. I'll see. All right. Before Damien heads to the door, are there any other questions for him? No. Okay, great. Thank you, Damien, for answering those questions. And we'll bring Simon in from Cox Architecture to talk to the application.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this scheme at Ballarat Street today that you've heard Damien talk so eloquently about before me. This project, we feel, has been a fantastic collaboration between ourselves at Cox Architecture and Breathe Architecture as well. And of course, our client, Hines, will talk shortly. They embarked on this journey partway through COVID in 2021 with a design competition process that led to the scheme that you're seeing here today. And although the site was acquired with a permit on it, as you've just heard Damien explain, we felt that we could do better. We felt the existing scheme really turned its back on the rest of the community. It internalised all amenity for the sole benefit of the occupants and didn't necessarily contemplate that future expansion of the rail corridor and the sky rail that you see coming up shortly. Our scheme was focused around that singular gesture that Damien's mentioned, that 1,100 square metre public space facing the corridor that we really felt gave back to the whole community, not just the occupants of these dwellings. Whereas the other developments we see do internalise that space and privatise so often. The new 1,100 square metre green space will contribute to reducing the urban heat island effect, which we think is an exemplar outcome within the area. We think will improve the biodiversity and the stormwater management, given how permeable the site will be, and also provides that fantastic shade from the retention of the major existing gum tree that was due to be demolished as part of the previous permit, I might add. Again, an exemplar outcome. The building is planned around a generous central courtyard, which really promotes social interaction around a network of breezeways, central really to the cross ventilation that's occurring across 70% of our dwellings, which was really part of our passive environmental design strategy for the building. This is also supported by the 5-star Green Star rating that you've heard is the first of its kind in the area, as well as that 7.5-star NatHERS rating. Importantly, zero gas. We've got a recycling hub in the building and a workshop as well for people to fix furniture. Again, that commitment to reducing waste through operation and as people go through the life of living in this building as part of that community. And whilst the design of the apartments themselves, of course, and the joinery within is highly modulated to reduce waste across construction and production. The communal amenities within this building is a build-to-rent project where there's a real focus on amenities for residents because we want to retain them through the life cycle of the building. They maximise social interaction and further foster that sense of community for the residents. Our proposal really acknowledges and builds on the diverse character within the industrial context of Brunswick, which you all know and love so well. We've got a highly articulated built form that we worked collaboratively with the Merri-bek planning department, thankfully, to develop. So it's really read as a village of smaller identifiable buildings in built form. Masonry presentation to Ballarat Street, really a robust textural material palette, and then a mix of concrete, lighter materials and metal detailing to the top of the building. And then we've got warmer materials flowing through the ground level.
Thanks, Simon. Last sentence.
We believe that this commitment to quality, amenity and community will create a true sense of place. And importantly, that new open space for the community of Brunswick. Hopefully, we can enjoy that for generations to come. Thanks again.
Simon. We'll head next to Will Peters, who is from Hines, Senior Development Manager, and is joining us in person.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
My name is Will. I'm the Senior Development Manager at Hines Australia. For those who are not familiar with Hines, we're a family-owned global real estate firm with a strong standing commitment to design excellence and innovation. Backed by our CEO, Laura Hines, we have a long-standing commitment to ensuring the communities we work in are successfully achieved great outcomes. There's a delicate balance between progress and sustainability, and Hines finds a way to achieve this. Our application is to amend a current permit to turn the development into a build-to-rent scheme, a concept that emphasises community engagement, affordability and accessibility. We manage over 71,000 BTR units globally. We're a world leader in this. Our approach to BTR is not just constructing buildings. It's about fostering a sense of community, creating a place for residents to thrive, and about lasting connections amongst neighbours. As a BTR development, we're the long-term owner of this asset. We're here for the life of the building, and our tenants are everything to us. If someone's late on their rent, we're not sending eviction notices. We're sending notices on how we can assist them. If people need maintenance or repairs, they're not waiting weeks and weeks for this to take place. We have full-time staff downstairs who can accommodate this. Too often these days, tenants are subject to mould, unthermally broken buildings, leaky roofs. This is not fair on tenants and it needs to stop. Hines has the capabilities to deliver sustainable, safe and diverse places to call home. We purchased the site with an existing 9-level permit to which we have accrued rights to. Our submission, which is presented today, set back this development from the rail corridor, creating a beautiful urban green space for the community to enjoy. We have very little impact on neighbouring developers. However, we respect everyone's objections and we diligently tried to deal with these, and we have made an unprecedented commitment to reduce a portion of the building, something no other developer would do in this situation. Most importantly, I want to emphasise that we've placed our trust in this very process, the council planning process. We're a very large organisation. There is other routes and avenues that we could have taken. Those routes and avenues ignore the community, but instead we've embraced them and we've tried to deliver something that benefits everyone in this area. We firmly believe the most successful developments are those that embrace the values and needs of locals. By trusting council, by trusting neighbours and trusting stakeholders, we hope we can deliver a development that is a testament to unity. In approving our development, as per the submission, we can create a legacy for Brunswick. We create the largest new urban green space in the area, and we also set a new benchmark for sustainable developments. Thank you, Mayor.
Fantastic. Thank you, Will. All right, next up, we've got one supporter here, and that is Travis Jordan, who's here in person. Thanks,
G'day,
Travis.
everyone.
You've got 3 minutes.
Thanks, I'll try to be brief. I'm speaking today as a lifelong renter and a sharehouse rat, and who recently got priced out of living in Brunswick, which was my home and community since I moved to Melbourne. And I want to express my support for the development at 10 Ballarat Street. 10 Ballarat Street is right near train stations and a tram line, major work centres and a shopping strip. There is no better place for high-density development, and Breathe has an exceptional history in delivering excellence in design and development for Brunswick. Likewise, build-to-rent projects like this have an important place in our housing mix and help facilitate greater housing diversity. As a lifelong renters advocate and big housing design nerd, high-quality build-to-rent projects mean better homes, better options for renters, and help build renters' bargaining power by making their relationships with their landlord and their intermediaries more tractable and less opaque. I also support improving connection with the upfield bike path and improving pedestrian connectivity on Ballarat Street generally, noting that the rise in retail occupancy on adjacent side streets, and commend the application for collaborating with neighbouring properties to improve and open up the public realm alongside the upfield bike path. This neighbourhood level design is so important to making good livable streets and so often lost outside of large lot brownfield development like this without lot consolidation. I am, however, disappointed that the proposal reduces the overall number of family-friendly 3-bedroom apartments from 20 to 4 and 2-bedroom apartments from 112 to 48. I understand this is to respond to current market demand, but over the long term, a good mix of larger family apartments help our neighbourhoods age and grow in place. And the economic trade-off should be for taller buildings with less setbacks, not less family-friendly apartments. If we want to be serious about housing affordability and good development, we should be building more taller buildings near our train stations and slashing the cost both in terms of time and resources to approve these builds and get shovels in the ground. I hope this is the start of a tsunami of high-quality build-to-rent projects that will reshape the upbuild corridor and make sure Brunswick stays a place for people like me and my friends. If we had a lot more projects like this and its neighbours, we'd be a long way to starting to fix the housing crisis.
Thanks, Travis. You can hop out. I'll just see if councillors have got any questions to put to officers or to any of the three people on behalf of the applicant. Councillor Pavlidis?
I just want to refer back to the comments that both, I think Damien and Will made. They've both mentioned that the current approval for 9 stories.
Yep.
My understanding was it's for 8, excluding the rooftop, exempt rooftop services, which I suppose will make it 9. So if they're proposing 10 stories now, that's excluding the rooftop services, which in effect would make it 11. Is that correct? My understanding, if I'm reading this correctly.
Phil?
Thank you, Councillor. So the proposal before you is for a 10-storey building. The previous proposal was 8 stories with some roof level floor space, which technically could be considered as 9 stories.
And so what, sorry, just for my benefit as well, could you just clarify? Yeah, so the proposal and then what the what the officer recommendation is?
So the proposal before you is for a 10-storey building, and the recommendation in the report before you is to delete 1 level to provide for a 9-storey building.
Okay. And does that include that additional roof stuff, I think is the crux of the question?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, I think that helps get there. Okay, I'll see, sorry, I did see actually Councillor Tapanos with his hand up for a question. Who was that directed
Thank you. The applicant or one of their representatives. It's about parking. I do see in the report that there's 81 residential on-site car parking spaces, 5 car share spaces and 6 motorbike spaces. I wanted to ask about loading bays and disability bays, whether that had been considered, and to confirm that the numbers in the report are correct.
Sure, so Damien's just coming back into the room now, thank you. Hop back to the mic.
Good evening, Councillor Tapanos. The loading bays, there are 2 loading bays provided in the basement, and there's also space at the ground floor for loading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything on disability?
Yes, there are provision for disabled car spaces within the basement also, or accessible car spaces. You mentioned there 5 car share spaces. The expectation here is that Hines will purchase the vehicles and operate the car share for the residents. They will be available for all residents on a 24-hour basis, and they are electric vehicles.
Great, thank you. I'll see, okay, one last question and then we might get to it.
Sorry, Damien.
That's okay.
Just in relation to the proposed number of dwellings or apartments in the proposal, if we're say going down to say 9 levels, so we would lose, I think 22 or something.
22 will be lost.
What configuration would be lost? Is it the studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms? Because the proposal lists 247.
That's
so which ones?
a great question. It'll be as they're shown on level 9, which I can...
So all of level 9?
Yeah, so at level 9. So the condition's very specific. It requires the removal of level 9 rather than just the reduction of 1 level from the development.
All right. If there are no further questions... okay, Councillor Pulford, you got a hand up? What's your question?
No, I'm trying to move the...
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
All right, you're
on.
keen. Okay, I've seen that. I'll just... Damien, you can hop out of the chamber. Thank you. All right, Councillor Pulford, you've already stuck your hand up, so what do you want to move?
I'd like to move the officer recommendation, which is the 9 stories.
Okay, we'll see if you've got a seconder for that one. Councillor Tapanos to second. All right, Councillor Pulford.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everyone who has been patient tonight and made it through to this final one. As mentioned in the conversation beforehand, this is a complete redesign of the approved building. It would see it grow by 2 levels as proposed, but the officer recommendation is to make it only grow by 1. And it was great to hear the applicant or the architects or the crew there say that they would accept, kind of begrudgingly accept that, and hear that potentially other developers, other developments wouldn't have taken it like that. We might have been seeing a challenge straight at VCAT. So appreciate that. I support the reduction of 1 story. We would lose 22 dwellings, but it brings it more in line with the neighbouring building. It's really some of the benefits I thought of this application are about 2/3 of the dwellings would be accessible or adaptable at least. There's going to be 7.5-star NatHERS rating, and it would be a 5-star Green Star building as well. So it's got some good kind of sustainability features throughout. As I think one of the supporters spoke about, it's on a tram line, it's on a train line. Again, this is the kind of area that we should be densifying. And I think really what I probably, is most unique about this application is the publicly accessible open space proposed along the upfield shared user path. So I think for most of the park, I think it would be about 13 metres from the boundary. Not quite all of the park, but you would see effectively the upfield shared user path expanded in some spots. We see, the retention of more trees. It's great design, and appreciate it coming to us for consideration. So happy to support this. For many of the other reasons we've debated earlier tonight. I won't talk too long. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. Now, we've got 6 minutes until 10 o'clock, so can I please request we extend to 10:30? Yep, and let's just not go to 10:30, please. All right, so I think that's all good on that. Councillor Tapanos as the seconder.
I'll try to be brief, Mayor. Just to say that some of the pros and cons, overwhelmingly so, that this is a really excellent design. Well done to the architects and all those involved. The materials, the quality of the design is exemplary in my view, and you don't see designs as good as these come before us. I was concerned to find out about the impact on the adjoining neighbour, who's also development. I do strongly believe in the equitable development of these parcels of land. But after seeking advice, I don't think that there is any technical breaches of the DDO apart from height, and that is not really a matter that I'm going to put into consideration tonight, but it is concerning if one development impacts the other. So I just wanted to state that to get it off my chest, but it's not really a major consideration for me today, because it's not a major breach of the design elements of the DDO, apart from the height, which we've well and truly heard about, which I think the additional level that this recommendation is seeking now is acceptable. As the person who spoke in support, my greatest concern about this development is really the lack of diversity and the decrease in 2- and 3-bedders. I understand that that's determined by the market, but and this might be speculative evidence, but as someone who speaks to a lot of people seeking to buy in Brunswick, Many people have told me that they've lived in apartments, created a family and can't find quality 3-bedroom apartments. So I say that here for the developer and the architect to hear me, that is, I think, a big consideration that they should consider in future developments that they do in the city, particularly in this transport corridor between the railway and Sydney Road. Of course, the greatest benefit here, which is a benefit to the new owners, well, the new residents of these buildings, but to the community as a whole, is that open space component. But again, this being a build to rent proposal means that it won't be subject to a subdivision and therefore there won't be open space contributions. And I think that the parcel of land that's going to be open and accessible goes a long way to mitigate against that and to contribute some, some needed open space in a very dense area. So I think that is a real benefit.
Thanks, Councillor Tapanos. Last sentence.
Yeah, so just I'm supporting it on those bases that I think overall the design is exemplary.
Thanks.
And it's a great development.
Thanks, Councillor Tapanos. I'll see if there's a speaker against this proposal. Councillor Bolton.
Yes, I've been thinking a bit to and fro on this proposal. I was sort of tempted to vote for this application on the strength of the open space being given back to the community. But I feel very strongly that height limits actually do need to mean something, including preferred height limits, even though I know they're not mandatory. The existing permit on the site is for 8 stories, which is already 2 stories above the preferred height limit. I just feel that if we keep on granting more and more levels above the height limit, then basically we've totally lost control of height. Now, that's a debate that council can have, but it should actually go back to the community and say, do we want height controls or do we not want height controls, rather than continually granting permits above the height limit. I think it's only fair and reasonable that the community be consulted about these heights. And so I, even though I do feel that there, 2 particular elements are very positive elements, the open space and also the setbacks on the Ballarat Street, like fronting onto Ballarat Street, I'm going to vote against this application on the strength of it going for, the officer's recommendation is to delete one of the levels, level 9. I've got an alternative motion to delete 2 levels, level 8 and level 9. So that's, if I'd urge councillors to vote this down.
Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Any other speakers in favour? Thanks, Councillor Conlon.
Yeah, so just side note, I don't think the build-to-rent model is a solution to the housing crisis. I think it's a strategy by developers to create a monopoly over the rental market. But anyway, but so generally I'm suspicious of developers who apply for amendments to permits to build higher developments after they've had approval for a smaller building. This activity encourages land banking and speculation, which we can see how this happens. Developers buy sites, they get a permit, wait for land values to rise, seek a higher development, then sell the land on without having built anything. And we know that this causes, this loose application of planning rules causes, which gives developers free floor space, causes land banking and increases land speculation and therefore land value. So it's not a good way for councils to deal with this housing issue. But in this case, the developer is offering a public good in exchange for additional floor space. So it's different from council giving away free floor space where we just gift developers additional height without requiring the developer to give anything, any public benefit back to the community. So I think in this case, what the developer is offering, because they're proposing a meaningful public contribution in the form of public open space and a widening of the upfield bike path, this is almost like a developer tax or a concession, as the developer is not getting a free a freebie in the form of extra floor space, but he's having to give something back to the community in the form of new open space. So the question for me then in this case is the public good proposed meaningful and beneficial to the community rather than tokenistic? And the answer for me in this case is yes, because it's a proper park. It's around 12 or 13 metres in width. It's not a little piece of land. And there's also a proper widening of the share path at the upfield share path at a very narrow point. So yes, this is quite different. Oh, and there's also the Ballarat Street streetscape improvements. So this is very different from other permit amendments which have sought from council higher developments in exchange for what I would say are dubious public benefits, usually through the provision of poorly defined outcomes. In this case, I'm okay with the proposal because the community will get a genuine public benefit in exchange for a modest one-storey increase in the overall proposal. I don't agree with the comments that we've lost control of the heights in this area because, to put this in context, the surrounding developments generally have approval for 8 stories. So I think making a concession for one additional story to 9 stories in exchange for the significant public good that's being proposed is a good community outcome in my view. And then that's because the developer it's not really a freebie because of the public benefit that's being proposed and the community is getting something out of it. And I think more broadly, if council adopts this type of approach to approving exceedances of the planning controls more consistently, where we extract genuine concessions from developers when they propose to exceed the planning
Councillor
controls,
Conlon.
that sends a strong message to developers that this council doesn't give away floor space, which is also developer profit for free.
Thanks, Councillor Conlon. I'll see if there are any other speakers against this item. No. Any other speakers in favour of it? And if not, we'll go back to the mover for his right of reply. Councillor Pulford.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just to say, I think there was an alternative flagged about if this fails, it would be reduced to 8 stories. I think that's a risky move because I think the applicant said tonight they're happy to accept 9 stories as the alternative recommendation proposes. I reckon if we were to not pass this and then pass a reduction to 8 stories, they'd go straight to VCAT and potentially get 10. So just think we need to keep in mind, VCAT strategy as well.
Thanks, Councillor Pulford. So we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of this application? 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. I'm going to do I'll call a division on that. So all those in favour were Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Riley, myself, Councillor Conlon, Councillor Pulford, and Councillor Tapanos. So that's carried. All those against were Councillor Bolton and Councillor Hart. And then abstentions, Councillor Pavlidis and Councillor Davidson. Now, I know there was a bit of a combination there, but we got that? Great. Okay, so that has been carried. So I'll now ask the officer to please outline the next steps.
Thank you. So council, apologies. Council has just issued a notice of decision to grant an amendment to the planning permit, subject to the conditions contained within the officer recommendation. Following the issue of that notice of decision, the applicant and objector parties will receive a copy and objectors will have 28 days to appeal that decision to the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged, an amended permit will be issued and the applicant will also have 60 days to appeal any conditions. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And with that, our meeting is closed at 10:05 p.m. Thanks everyone for bearing with us. I think that was our longest planning meeting. Thanks everyone.
Well done. See everyone.
See you.